The story begins with the fact that the War of the Gods is long in the past, so Lin Jisuan's name has long been forgotten, and his daughter can swing hard on the swing and brag about it to dad. However, the girl stopped laughing when she talked about how she had to tell the teacher about Zinzan's injury, which prevented him from coming to the meeting. The former god of war was a hero, but due to his injuries he could not move, and his daughter was often bullied because of this. Unfortunately for Lin Jisuan, his wife was also bullied, and their daughter had to watch the woman cry secretly at night. Ray Jiang really wanted dad to come to his senses as soon as possible, and the man felt terrible that he could not prevent the suffering of his loved ones. Lin Jisuan saw his daughter's tears as she looked at him with hope and said that he would teach these bad people a lesson. The girl had to turn away from her dad when a boy her age appeared next to her and shouted that the vile girl was crying again. Ray Jiang didn't intend to let him insult her, so she shouted back that she wasn't vile at all. But the bully looked at her with contempt and told rumors that the girl's mother spoiled her and then took advantage of the man vegetable. Such disgusting untruthful words made Ray Jiang very angry, so she immediately jumped off the swing and walked closer to Zhou Xiaohu. The girl was furious and screamed at her offender that if he dared to insult her parents again, he would get the full punishment for it. Because of Ray Jiang's violent reaction, the boy lost his sense of superiority, and to put her in her place, he pushed the girl to the ground. Zhou Xiaohu was larger than the girl, so the push was quite strong. Besides, there was still a swing behind her, and Ray hit her head on it. The bully rejoiced at the pain of others and allowed himself to spit on the other person, threatening to gouge out his eyes if he saw her looking at him. Jiang Ray felt helpless and clutched the grass in her hands in anger, while Zhou Xiaohu said that she was a small, vile animal. In the end, the girl could not stand the insults and, like an animal, attacked the guy, biting his hand. The hooligan's parents were standing nearby, and when the boy's mother saw that her son was being attacked, she hastened to intervene. The woman kicked someone else's child while insulting her. Xiaohu's mother shouted that the girl was a brute who lacked education. Jiang Ray found herself on the floor again, but now she was looking angrily at the woman who was behaving no better than her son. She picked up the girl from the ground, ignoring her screams, and carried her towards Xiaohu because she wanted to make her humiliate herself. After the woman let go of Ray, she began screaming for the girl to get down on her knees and immediately apologize. Lin Jisuan sat in a wheelchair, and his internal energy began to boil over from such injustice towards his daughter. Rage and a desire to protect filled the man as he looked at Jiang Ray's suffering. His daughter cried and sincerely did not understand why she should apologize to the one who first started calling him names. Then Xiaohu's father intervened in this quarrel. The man grabbed the girl by the ponytail and pulled hard, ordering her to apologize. Jiang Ray continued to resist the two adults and received a slap from the woman. Xiaohu's mother looked at the little girl as if she was nothing more than trash and asked if she was sure of her words. Jisuan's daughter was well aware that her opponents were far superior to her, but she stubbornly refused to bow to them. Father Xiaohu swung at Jiang Ray and shouted that he would teach a bitch like her a good lesson today. But to the great surprise of all parties to the conflict, Lin Jisuan stopped the man's hand. The former god of war was furious. He held the man and asked him how he dared to touch Jiang Ray. The day came when Lin Feng regained his powers, and he declared that from now on, anyone who touched his daughter would be killed. Father Xiaohu, who a moment ago was enjoying his superiority, now felt like his life was hanging by a thread. From that day on, Lin Jisuan had no intention of allowing anyone to humiliate his family. Lin Feng pinned his daughter's abuser to the ground and beat him while Xiaohu's mother watched helplessly. The woman was very worried about her husband and tried to figure out how she could help him. In the end, she decided to walk up to Lin Feng and hit him and scream at him not to dare hit her husband. Xiaohu's mother pointed at Jisuan and threatened him that she would call the police immediately. Jiang Ray's father did not allow the woman to finish her threat as she was thrown back by the force with which he slapped her face. Xiaohu's mother was lying on the grass when Lin Fei reminded her that she got it for hitting his daughter. Jisuan was filled with anger and ordered to remember this day when he spared their lives, despite the fact that they abused his daughter. Lin Feng flashed back to one of his battles, then he fought alone against a huge number of soldiers. He urged the last warrior and was breathing heavily, and his whole body was covered in abrasions and not deep scratches. However, unexpectedly, Lin Jizuan heard someone say that he could single-handedly motivate an army of 10,000, so he quickly turned his gaze towards the voice. More warriors were landing in front of him, who were not going to let the man win so easily. One of the soldiers looked at Lin Feng and admitted that, like him, he was truly worthy of the title, Great. The 7 sons of the Western Alliance stood in front of the lone warrior, and the guy with blonde hair said that today he would die at their hands. Such a confident statement from his opponents made Lin Feng smile slightly, after which he raised his spear and shouted that he had been fighting for 6 years and did not think that he should be afraid of them. The leader of the Sons of the Western Alliance rushed to attack, although he respected their enemy as a warrior, but for Jizuan himself this did not matter. The warriors owned different types of weapons and jumped on top of the man, not giving him a chance to survive. Lin Feng dodged the blade, but the spear's handle struck his body. But, despite this, Lin Jizuan did not waver and was able to throw away one of the Sons of the Western Alliance with the help of his spear. The leader, who had flamberges in his hands, was behind the man and was sure that he would deal him a fatal blow. Lin Feng had to act very quickly in order to repel someone else's attack. The spear pierced the enemy's body and the arms with blades sank down, never finishing the attack. Due to a serious injury, the leader began to bleed from his mouth, and he himself could not believe that such a thing was even possible. Lin Fan explained to the enemy that he was too weak and even with an army of 10,000, he would not move him a meter back. The remaining 3 members of the alliance were only a meter away when Jizuan made several slashes and told the warriors to blame themselves for the loss. Lin Feng's spear movements were so fast and confident that the warriors did not even have time to react. Only at the last moment did they understand that now the end would come for them and there was nothing they could do. With strong blows, Lin Jizuan threw away all the members of the alliance, shouting that they were only stumbling blocks on his way home. Now the man again stood alone on the battlefield and believed that if he brought order to the country, then everything would be calm at home. After the active part of the fight was over, the missed blows began to make themselves felt, and blood appeared in the mouth. Lin Fan's eyes were closing, but he knew that he could not die because his daughter still needed a bone marrow transplant. He was pulled out of this memory by the voice of Jiang Rei, who constantly called him and clung to her father's legs. The man was very happy to see his daughter. He smiled at her and said that he came because Xian called him. Lin Fan held Jiang Rei in his arms until the girl could not believe that this was really her father, and Jizuan promised to kill the entire family if they did not bow 100 times. The Zhou family bowed and with each bow they apologized and said that they had made a mistake. The girl cried loudly when she said that everyone around her hated her dad, but the man promised that he would no longer allow anyone to bully Yusun. Jiang Rei continued to cry and complain that no one believed her, that Lin Feng was a hero, and her mother was always very upset. The man listened to his daughter, but he had to distract himself when he realized that his body had not fully recovered. He was upset, but he knew he needed to wake up to protect his family. Although Yusun was upset, she immediately noticed that it was hard for her dad and asked him to let her go downstairs. Lin Fan obeyed and carefully put the girl on the floor, although he tried to convince her that he was fine. The man sat down next to Jiang Rei and stroked the top of her head, inviting her to go home to her mother. Yusun said that their grandmother kicked them out of the house and forbade them to come home because their mother had to talk to Uncle Song. Lin Fan frowned and realized that there was some kind of catch in this situation, since he and the girl were sent away. Little Jiang Rei leaned over to her dad and whispered to him to pretend to be asleep again. Lin Jizuan smiled at his daughter and told her that she suggested a good idea and they would do so. The man returned to the wheelchair with Yusun to carry out their plan. He sat down in a chair, and the girl started screaming that he became like this again because the Zhou family beat him. Jiang Rei turned to the frightened couple and said that she was going after her uncle and then it would be the end for them. The girl began to push her dad towards the house, and Zhou Xiaohu's parents believed that they wanted to demand compensation from them for the rig damage. After some time, they finally found themselves in front of the main entrance to the house. There was an adult woman standing in the corridor who was very unhappy with their appearance, so she immediately came out to them. She insulted the girl and reminded her that she did not allow her to bring Lin Fen back until she called them. Yusun hid behind the wheelchair and did not boldly admit to her grandmother that she and dad were very tired. However, the woman was not going to listen and understand the girl, so in a rage she ordered her to shut up. She pointed at Lin Feng and shouted at Jiang Rui not to dare to call this cripple her dad. Yusun puffed out her cheeks at the injustice and continued to insist that she would call him her father. Then the girl heard a strange male voice, which said that it would be an honor for him to spend his life with Xinyue. After that, a tall man came out of the house and was about to leave their house. Lin Feng became gloomy when his daughter whispered that this man was the same Uncle Song that her mother had spoken to. Xinyue was a young, beautiful girl who looked upset and said that she wanted to consider his marriage proposal. Song Yen allowed the girl to think about it some more, but he was confident that he would make a good impression on her. The man turned around and saw that a little girl and a man in a stroller were standing in the yard right in front of him. He realized that this was Xinyue's daughter, so he went down to the girl and began to pat her cheeks, saying how cute the girl was. Xinyue's mother ordered Xinyue not to stand still, but to go and see off the guest, but the girl refused. And since there was no time to argue, the woman decided to see Song Yen off on her own. Yusun's grandmother ran after her guest to find out how their meeting went, leaving her upset daughter behind. Jiang Rui drew conclusions after observing the situation and whispered to her dad that this man wanted to steal their mom. Xinyue called her daughter and, with all care and tenderness, took the small hand into her palms. The girl sat down opposite the girl and thanked her for taking care of her dad today. Yusun began to cry and ask her mother if she was really looking for a new dad, but Xinyue promised that this would not happen. Jiang Rui looked up at her mother in disbelief and said that she heard Uncle Song's words when he left the house. Xinyue wiped away her daughter's tears and noticed a mark on her face. The woman asked if her daughter had really quarreled with someone again. The girl didn't want to upset her mother, so she lied and said she just fell and ran into her arms. Only the three of them remained in the courtyard, and Xinyue suggested returning to the house and putting Yusun in order. After returning to the house, a little time passed, and Jiang Rui was sent to her room, and her parents were left alone. Xinyue sat on the bed in front of Lin Feng and tried to figure out what the right thing to do in this situation. The girl called him, and Jizuan was worried that he had been seen through so quickly and realized that he had come to his senses. But Xinyue admitted that although she knows that he cannot hear her and is not conscious, she cannot remain silent. Such words from the girl made Lin Feng worry even more, and he had to make an effort not to give himself away. Xinyue gently stroked her husband's hair and said with tears in her eyes that Yusun was saved when he sacrificed himself. But the eldest daughter of the Jiang family also wanted her daughter to have a strong and happy family. Jiang Xinyue placed her hand on Lin Feng's legs and continued to talk about what was bothering her. The girl lay on her husband's lap and said with tears in her eyes that she was ready to marry Song Yen if he treated their daughter well. It was not easy for Mother Yuxing to make such a decision, but now she felt that she remained honest with Lin Feng. She rose to her feet and sincerely apologized to the man, who continued to sit silently in the chair. The girl began to leave and Jizuan thought that she had been through a lot during the entire time that he was absent. A loud knock was heard from the other side and the guy realized that he was not alone in the room. Younger sister Jiang came out of the bathroom and said that Lin Feng was just pathetic, her sister was getting married, and he was sitting in blissful ignorance. The man didn't expect to see Jiang Xinya in their room, and although he didn't react to her words outwardly, he was tense inside. The young girl came close to the wheelchair, and then she threw off the wet towel. She took the man by the chin and regretted that such a handsome man was so useless. A melody began to play in the room, which distracted Jian Xian from looking at someone else's face. The girl lay down on the bed and greeted her future brother-in-law when she accepted the call. Her feet were in front of Lin Feng's face, and the person on the other end of the line was asking whether that thing had an effect on Xinyue. The man turned his attention from his feet and began to listen to the conversation, realizing that Song Yen had called the girl. Jiang Xinya told the interlocutor that her sister would sooner or later accept his offer and the drug was not at all necessary. However, Song Yen didn't think so, so he invited the younger Jiaye to buy whatever she wanted. This was all the girl wanted, so she immediately demanded a handbag and a pair of shoes, which they promised her on the condition that everything went as it should. Jiang Xinya walked to her sister's closet and promised that they would do whatever Song Yen said. She dressed in one of the sweaters and asked her future brother-in-law to change Xinyue's clothes as soon as they got married. Soon the girl left the bedroom, and Lin Feng was left alone sitting in the center of the room. The man considered what he had heard. It was hard for him to accept Jiang Sini's actions, especially that she uses such methods to get what she wants. The window to Lin Feng and Jiang Xinyue's bedroom was open, and a light wind blew the curtains. A girl appeared in front of the wheelchair. She worshipped the Great One and was glad that he had finally awakened. The man recognized the girl as Shao Qing and asked why she was not guarding the border. The girl, without raising her eyes, admitted that the Great One is now more important than the border, especially since after his last battle no one dared to violate the border. Lin Feng listened carefully to his subordinate and asked if there was any more news for him. Shao Qing became gloomy and said that during these 2 years he was surrounded by ill-wishers and those who want to take away his wife. But without an order, the girl could not do anything, so now she asked permission to kill all the villains. Zhizuan listened to her and could barely contain his rage. Muzina realized that while he was recovering, some unscrupulous people had already managed to get closer. However, he was more worried about Song Yan now, so he asked Shao Qing to bring all the information about him. The girl accepted the great man's order and said that she would immediately begin collecting information and bring it as soon as possible. The subordinate left the room through the window as quickly and unnoticed as she had appeared, and Lin Feng was left alone again. But he didn't have to sit alone for long, because the door opened and Yuxing cheerfully told her mother about the surprise. The girl brought her mother to her father and reminded her of the fairy tale in which the prince kissed the sleeping beauty and she woke up. Jiang Rui smiled happily at her mother and promised that if she kissed her father, he would also come to his senses. Jiang Xinyue didn't know how to respond so as not to upset her daughter, so she seriously thought about her words. She leaned over to Yuxing, stroked her on the top of her head and told her with a smile that this story was just a fairy tale. The girl knew that Dad had already woken up and wanted to make Mom find out about it in this way, so she insisted on trying. Xinyue didn't believe it would work, but she couldn't refuse her beloved daughter, so she agreed. The girl walked up to her husband, cupped his cheeks and carefully looked at Lin Feng's face. The man had not seen his wife for so long and understood that she would really kiss him now. Jiang Xinyue put all her love into this kiss, because in the depths of her soul there was a glimmer of hope that the guy would wake up. Yuxing looked through her palms and thought that now Dad would come to his senses, and Mom would jump with happiness. But to her regret, Lin Feng did not react at all, and Xinyue was able to confirm that this story was just a fairy tale. The girl was very upset and did not understand why Dad didn't get up and show Mom that he had come to his senses. Jiang Xinyu took her daughter's hand in hers and promised that she would find Yusen a new dad, since this one does not wake up. Jiang Rui pulled her hand away and started screaming that her mother was a liar. The girl cried and reminded her that her mother had promised not to look for a new dad. Yusen grabbed her father's hand and tried to lift him up herself. She sobbed in hopelessness and begged him to wake up. Jiang Xinyue could not look at this picture without tears and understood that she needed to find a dad for the girl. Jiang Rui was sure that Lin Feng could hear her and begged her to tell her mother that he had already recovered. It was very difficult for the man to pretend, and he mentally apologized to his daughter, but he understood that first he needed to reveal Song Yan's true appearance. Yusen saw that Dad was not reacting at all and her grip gradually weakened, while she continued to cry. Xinyue took her daughter and tried to explain to her that until Lin Feng woke up, she needed someone to take care of her. The girl did not agree with this. She continued to reach out to Dad, and when he continued to remain silent, she shouted that he was a liar like Mom. Jiang Xinyue was forced to take her daughter out of the room. She asked her not to yell at her father, but Yusen couldn't believe that Dad would let Mom replace him. This difficult day was coming to an end and it was already dark outside the window. In the entire Jiang huge house, the light was on in only one room. Yusen was still able to fall asleep. There were still tears in her eyes, and in her sleep she muttered that everyone around her was a liar. Jiang Xinyue was sitting next to her daughter and felt terribly guilty towards her when the door to the nursery opened. Signa appeared in the doorway, reminded her sister about the evening banquet and asked why the girl was still at home. The elder sister did not react at all, even when they began to pull her hand, and Signa insisted that they had to go. The girl thought about her sister's words that Song Yan would be able to give Yusen whatever she wanted. Xinyue just wanted her daughter to be happy and not fall asleep with tears in her eyes, so she felt obligated to go. Lin Feng was still in the bedroom when Shao Qing appeared through the open window in the room. There was an envelope in the girl's farts and she reported to the grate that she had collected all the necessary information about Song Yen. After that, she handed over the envelope and reminded that today was the lady's birthday and a banquet had been organized in her honor, which she would be at in 40 minutes. Lin Feng accepted the information envelope and thanked his subordinate for a job well done. The man opened the envelope and took out a stack of papers and began to carefully read their contents. Jisuan couldn't believe that this little Song family thought that no one would guess their intentions. Lin Feng began to get up from his wheelchair and ordered Xiao Qing to get ready. The man was going to a birthday party and the girl was going to go with him. The Jiang sisters arrived at the hotel within 40 minutes and were greeted politely by a smiling employee. The girl asked if the girls came according to Mr. Sun's reservation, and when Xinya confirmed this, she said that they were lucky. The employee reported that a separate room had been reserved for them, but it was very difficult to do this in their hotel. All three girls walked into the hall and couldn't believe what they saw. Jiang Xinya expressed particular admiration. She asked her elder sister to look at the huge arch with a sign that wished Xinyue a happy birthday. Elder Jiang could not share her younger sister's delight, and soon she heard Song Yen calling them. The man adjusted his glasses and was surprised that his father had booked the entire hotel, although he did not show it outwardly. Jiang Xinya quickly found herself next to her future brother-in-law and laughed and said that he was no mistake. At this moment, footsteps were heard in the hotel corridor, and a little girl greeted Xinyue. The child was dressed in an angel costume, and in her hands was a box with a gorgeous ring that was intended for the birthday girl. Xinya's eyes sparkled when she saw the golden ring with a huge diamond, and she wanted to take a closer look at it. Song Yen appeared next to Jiang Xinyue and the little girl, took the ring box and addressed the girl. The man decided that his father was very afraid of Xinyue's refusal. Since he bought such a ring, Song Yen knelt down and proposed. The hotel workers who watched this scene whispered that the Song family was sparing no expense for the engagement. The guy took Xinyue's hand and promised that he would love her with all his heart and would always take care of her. The man looked at his chosen one and asked if she agreed to accept his proposal. It was very difficult for Jiang Xinyue to make a decision. Her soul was torn into two halves and she remained silent. Xiao Qing and Lin Feng sat at the piano and carefully watched what was happening in the hotel lobby. The subordinate asked the grate if she should kick out this insolent person, but Jisuan asked him to wait. The man looked at his wife, and he was very worried that she herself would respond to someone else's proposal. Jiang Xinyue took her hand from Song Yen and said that this was all too unexpected for her. The girl was worried about who would take care of Lin Feng if he did not wake up, and Xinya, in a panic, tried to convince her sister to agree. Song Yen again heard that the girl needed to think, but this time he had no intention of retreating. The man stood up and began to reproach the girl for her ingratitude, because he had rented a whole hotel for her and promised to take care of her daughter. Xinya tried to reason with her sister, but Xinyue did not think that she should marry him because he was rich and influential. In addition, she was very angry that Song Yen dared to reproach her with her daughter, so she refused his offer. The girl was very surprised when, despite her refusal, the man dared to reach out to her. Song Yen held Jiang Xinyue close to him as she tried to escape. The man said that without him, the Jiang family would cease to exist. Yen tried to prove to the girl that she had no choice, but other people's threats had no effect. The man whispered that Xinyue must be obedient so that her daughter would be taken care of properly. Song Yen announced that today was his wedding day and he was paying for everyone, so the guests began to praise the Song family. Lin Feng did not like this attitude towards his wife and told Xiao Qing that she would know what to do. In a second, the girl found herself behind the impudent man, who continued to approach Jiang Xinyue. Xiao Qing grabbed Song Yan's hand, forcing him to look at the one who interfered with him in bewilderment. Lin Feng's subordinate was furious and ordered the guy not to paw the lady. The guards immediately rushed towards Mr. Song, but Yan looked confident and calmed the guards with a gesture, and then ordered everyone to leave. The man decided that he was stopped by another beauty who was simply jealous of his new bride. He stroked the indignant Xiao Qing's cheek and asked if she also wanted to be hugged. The guards watched his actions and admired what a talented person Mr. Song has the right to enjoy all the benefits of the world. Lin Feng's subordinate did not tolerate such treatment and hit the man in the face, breaking his glasses. Xiao Qing towered over him and said that rudeness deserves a slap, until the evil guy could not believe what had happened. Song Yen grabbed his cheek and ordered his guards to kill this girl immediately. The men obeyed and rushed at her with fists and shouts that she did not understand what she had gotten herself into. The guard was very surprised when he saw that instead of retreating, the girl put her hand in front of his forehead, and with one slight movement, Xiaoqing threw away the first attacker. After that, she also easily neutralized 3 more guards without making much effort. The men ended up on the floor, and one of the guards looked at his wounded colleagues and did not understand how this happened. Song Yen was furious. He shouted that he was the heir of the Song family and they were now in his family's territory. Xiaoqing looked down on him and said that the insignificant Song family should behave more modestly. Jiang Xinyue, you are very interested in who this girl is, and she was very surprised when Lin's subordinate wished her a happy birthday. Suddenly, very beautiful music started playing in the hotel lobby, and a man shouted for everyone to look at the stage. The Jiang sisters turned their heads and saw a beautiful man sitting at the piano and playing this wonderful melody. Xinya could not take her eyes off the man and shouted that he was handsome, but the elder sister recognized Lin Feng. Xiaoqing confirmed that it was her master on stage and said that the girl was a worthy spouse, and Xiyan asked her to be careful in her words. Song Yen, you were beside yourself with rage when you saw that someone came to the hotel that was booked by his family and loudly called for the manager. The hotel staff heard his screams, and the manager asked Brother Wang to call someone to the lobby. Soon a huge number of men appeared in the main lobby of the hotel, and the manager said that they were too casual. The hotel employee apologized and said that they would sort things out soon, and Mr. Song felt uneasy due to the large number of security guards. But he was also pleased with himself when he understood that the impudent girl who dared to hit him would get what she deserved. Song Yen pointed at Xiaoqing and Xinyue and ordered the guards to take the 2 women away. However, the men did not listen to his instructions, but rather began to drag him out of the hotel. Mr. Song shouted at the manager while he was trying to get out of someone else's grip and tried to explain to everyone that he was from the Song family. The hotel employee smiled at the guy and said that there was indeed a mistake because the one who rented the entire hotel had the surname Lin. At first, Song Yen began to act smug, but then he realized in a panic that everything had not gone according to plan. The manager approached Xiaoqing and apologized for their mistake, and then ordered them to listen to the guests and throw the gentleman out of here. Song Yen was dragged out of the hall along with his guards, ignoring his screams. The manager thought that compared to Mr. Song was just a nonentity and said on the radio that he forbade the entire Song family from entering their hotel. Jiang Xinyue's attention was once again turned completely to the man who was playing the piano, and the girl tried to look at his face. Elder Jiang was very curious whether her husband Lin Feng was really sitting there. Xinyue asked Xiaoqing about this, but she told the girl to address this question to her master. Younger sister Jean was delighted with the handsome and rich man her sister knew and really asked her to introduce her to him too, but Xinyue said she didn't know him, and the rest of the guests were delighted to discuss the unique melody played by Mr. Lin. After this, the noise of explosions attracted their attention and one of the guests asked everyone present to look into the sky. When they raised their heads, they saw that the whole sky was strewn with fireworks, and in the center there was an inscription that congratulated the birthday girl. Jiang Xinya was delighted with such a romantic gesture, and Xinyue had mixed emotions. After she read the surname Lin, the girl suddenly felt the need to check whether it was really her husband. Jiang Xinyue turned around sharply and tried to run towards the piano, but the younger sister did not allow her to run away, grabbing her hand. However, the girl did not linger next to Xinya, pulled out her hand and ran on. She reached the stage and did not run up to the piano in full confidence that Lin Feng was waiting for her there. Only to her great chagrin, there was no one in the room anymore, and she was trying to understand why he left. An angry sister appeared behind her, convincing Xinyue that her colleague was at home. The girl listened to Signa's words and decided that the guy had gone home, and now she also needed to go back. Lin Feng actually left the hotel and headed home, so he ended up in the room before his wife. Standing next to him was Xiaoqing, whom he asked to collect all the Jiang family's affairs and hand them over to him. The girl apologized for her frankness. Her mother said that people like the Song family do not require him to deal with them personally. Lin Feng smiled at his subordinate and asked if she was really worried about the consequences of someone finding out about his awakening. Since Xiao Qing was standing at the window, she immediately saw the car and reported to the boss that the lady was returning. In addition, the girl said that she would carry out the order, but now it was time for her to leave. Lin Feng changed into old clothes as he planned to hide the news of his awakening for a while longer. And although he did not want to upset his wife, he was forced to keep the secret. Jiang Xinyue ran past her mother, ignoring her questions about how the birthday celebration went. The girl purposefully went up to her bedroom, and the woman shouted after her that nothing had changed in the vegetables room. Jiang Xinya followed her sister and upsetly told her mother what Xinyue had done today at the festival. The girl showed the man's recording and said that this rich man with the surname Lin rented the entire Jiangzhou hotel for elder Jiang. The woman began calling her eldest daughter again and convinced her that she would not have forced her to marry Song Yan if she had known about such a rich suitor. Jiang Xinyue suddenly opened the door to her bedroom and called out to Lin Feng, hoping that he would wake up. Tears welled up in her eyes when the girl saw that Lin Feng was still sitting immobilized in the stroller. Xinyue was sure that she saw her husband at the hotel then, but now all her confidence has evaporated. She cried and remembered how 5 years ago her family forced her to marry Song Yan, whom she hated. Therefore, she was very happy when her grandfather asked her to marry the general, but Lin Feng spent one night with her and then disappeared. After that, Yusen was born to them and the girl became a ray of hope in the world of Xinyue. When their daughter fell ill and needed a bone marrow transplant, Lin Feng showed up and saved Ray, to the detriment of his own health. Jiang Xinyue continued to cry when she thought about this. She understood that although their daughter was saved, her husband had become a vegetable. The girl knelt in front of him again and begged the man to return to her, because she could no longer live like this. Lin Feng, looking at his wife, his heart was bursting with pain, and he mentally promised that she had very little time to wait. Jiang Xinya watched this picture and couldn't understand what her sister saw in this vegetable that lives at someone else's expense. The girl remembered the handsome and rich Mr. Lin and did not understand why this garbage was better. The younger sister came into the room and asked the girl to go with her to a bar called Fate. Jiang Xinyue didn't want to go anywhere and said that she promised to take Yusen to school tomorrow, so she suggested going another day. But Xinya did not want to back down. She dragged the girl along with her and said that they needed to relax. And that's all, because after what happened, Song Yan called her and asked her to fulfill her part of the deal. The girl didn't want to do this at first, but the man promised that you could make Mr. Lin become Xinya's husband. Younger Jiang believed this lie and promised to take her sister to the right bar tonight. Therefore, Jiang Xinya was now trying to achieve the desired result with the help of her sister's concern. It worked and, despite her desire to go, Xinyue agreed and went to fix her makeup. Younger Jiang was delighted. She hugged her sister and shouted that she was the best. When the girl headed towards the exit from the bedroom, Xinya saw her off with an evil smile. Then she leaned over to Lin Feng and told him that after today, her sister would finally divorce such trash. Xinyue called the girl and put the man alone and hurried after her sister. Xiao Qing appeared through the window in the room and reported that she had found out all the latest affairs of the Jiang family. It turned out that there was a financial crisis in their company, and the Song family promised to stop it if the girl married their son. Lin Feng frowned and said that Song Yan is very calculating and now they will see who is faster with the teeth of the Song family or his blade. The man watched the car with his wife drive away from the house, and he ordered his subordinate to monitor Song Yan's movements. Song Yan was sitting at a bar called Fate and the waiters noticed that the man looked joyful. They poured the guy a glass of drink and asked if he had any good news. The man laughed wildly and said that he had great news and those around him congratulated him on this. Soon, the Jiang sisters entered the bar, and the eldest asked if they had already come to the right place. Jiang Xinyue straightened her hair and looked so beautiful that it took her breath away. The men looked at the girls and embarrassedly noted how beautiful they were, and Song Yan smiled contentedly. He stood up from his seat and began to walk towards the girls, greeting Xinyue. However, the girl was not there to see him and demanded an explanation from him why he was there, and her younger sister was desperately trying to smooth things over. Senior Jiang guessed that Xinya had conspired with this man to lure her to this bar. The man appeared next to her and tried to convince Xinyue to stay, Then he asked Xinyue to bring her here to apologize. Song Yan bowed to the girl and admitted that he acted rashly, so he apologizes and would like to talk about it. Jiang Xinyue mentally admitted that their family needed to rely on his family, so there was no point in ruining the relationship. She said that she understands everything and people make mistakes. The man, in turn, promised that this would not happen again, and he himself was mentally waiting for the moment when he would drag the girl into bed and make her answer for everything. Song Yan walked to the steaming counter and took the glass. He began to pour wine for the girl. The guy apologized once again, and took advantage of the fact that her attention was diverted, throwing a vocal pill. The man asked to accept a glass of wine as an apology, but Xinyue refused because she was driving. Jiang Xinya suggested that the girl drink at least a little to convince the guy that she had forgiven him. Song Yan grabbed the girl and said that nothing would happen from one glass, so Senior, Jiang accepted the glass. Xinyue gave up and drank all the wine in one gulp so that these two would leave her alone. Jiang Xinya smiled and said that now a man must believe in her sister's sincerity. Song Yan was overjoyed and was already looking forward to how he would take possession of the girl that night. A few moments later, Xinyue's head began to spin and she suddenly felt unwell. Lin Feng's wife tried to tell her sister that they needed to go back, but the arrogant guy pushed her aside and stood next to her. After that, he picked up the girl in his arms, although she resisted, and sent Xinya off to have fun. There were a lot of people in the bar. They were all smiling, dancing and having fun when Xiaoqing reported that Xinyue had been captured. Lin Feng ordered his subordinate to immediately find out which hotel she was in, and a second later he was told that she was at the Milky Way Grand Hotel. The Great One was angry and ordered his subordinates to inspect the situation, but he wanted to deal with the main problem himself. Song Yan actually took the girl to a hotel called the Milky Way, which was located not far from the bar. Jiang Xinyue did not understand what was happening. She was trying to understand where they were and what the man was going to do with her. The girl said that she wanted to go home, but this disgusting man did not listen to her and tried to convince the girl that she had drunk too much and knew what they were doing in hotels. Song Yan grabbed his victim by the chin and told her that they would sleep together today, which means his life was not lived in vain. Although Xinyue was under the influence of drugs, she was not going to give up so easily and pushed the unscrupulous man away from her. A crazy smile appeared on his face as he said that he did not expect the victim to have the strength to resist the effects of the pill. Song Yan behaved like a maniac, and when Xinyue tried to crawl away, he shouted that the more she resisted, the more excited he became. The man grabbed the girl by the hand and said that she would not be able to escape because there were a lot of his people around. Jiang Xinyue felt disgusted and tried to fight off the rapist while he continued to paw her, making her even more turned on. The girl understood that she needed to resist with all her might, so at the first opportunity she bit the attacker on the ear. The rapist got angry and pulled the girl by the hair. He shouted that if she continued, she would find her death. The man strangled his victim, saying that she was to blame for not wanting to marry him. Xinyue at this moment could only think about her husband. Just at that moment, the door to the room opened and Lin Feng appeared on the threshold. The rapist did not recognize this man and shouted at him. The war hero was intimidating with just his appearance and promised Song Yang that he would send his entire family to the cemetery if he touched Xinyue again. Elder Jiang could not believe her eyes. Standing in front of them was her husband, who saved her from the rapist in the person of the son of the Song family. Song Yan was in no hurry to move away from his victim, for which he received Lin Feng in the face and flew to the floor. The man carefully examined the unexpected guest and tried to understand how a guy from a wheelchair could now stand here. The rapist was once again left without glasses and, sitting on the floor, decided to admit defeat. Now, in addition to the abrasion on his cheek, Song Yan had a black eye on his face and he was sure that the two were conspiring against him. Such an absurd assumption angered Lin Feng even more, and he hoped to attribute this nonsense to someone else's intoxication. The son of the Song family stood up on trembling legs and assured that he would be rescued now. Yan's confidence amused the guy. The rapist felt that the superiority was on his side and began to say that such a cripple would never cope with someone like him. The man threatened Lin Feng that he would harm his wife. If he dared to touch him, they would be buried together. It was impossible to listen to such empty threats, so the war hero could not stand it and asked what kind of nonsense this nonsense was talking about. Lin Feng decided that this time he would limit himself to just a warning when Song Yan began to snap again. The beaten man took out his phone and promised his opponent that they would soon find out which of them was the real nonentity. But Yan's hand was intercepted, and Lin Feng asked if this was the hand with which he touched Xinyue. Now the Song family son's confidence had dissolved, and he fearfully asked what the man was going to do. Lin Feng began to twist someone else's arm and the rapist felt terrible pain and hoped that he would be released soon. As the pain became stronger, the heir of the Song family began to say that his family would not let his death go so easily. In response to this statement, the man hit the rapist on the kneecap and he dropped to his knees. Lin Fei towered over the son of the Song family and expressed that he did not care about his influential family. He turned away from the rapist and promised that if the guy caused problems again, there would be no mercy. Jiang Xinyue felt her eyelids getting heavy, and it was difficult to remain conscious. Her husband approached her. He took off his jacket and covered the girl with it, promising that now he was nearby and from now on everything would be fine. But these words could not completely calm her down, so she reminded her that the guy would go to prison for murder. Song Yan began to gloat and revel in the girl's words. He felt confident again and began to taunt Lin Feng. The war hero again approached the rapist and began to think about their words. For killing a person, he would go to prison, but in his eyes, Yan was not a person. The guy grabbed the rapist by the head and pushed him to the floor. For himself, he made a verdict, and the Song heir was an animal. Song Yan began to beg for mercy while someone else's foot pinned him to the floor, and he received a promise that he would not die so easily and only when he was not needed. Lin Feng removed his leg, but in order for the Song heir to live, a condition appeared: he had to pay. The fear of death consumed the rapist, and his whole body trembled as he tried to understand what the man meant. The war hero looked at the nonentity who dared to encroach on his wife, against her will, and said that he would now show it. Song Yan tried to persuade Lin Feng to retreat, but someone else's foot stepped on the man's most vulnerable spot with all his might, causing him to scream in pain. Now Zhizun felt that his duty had been fulfilled and could leave the rapist writhing on the floor. The man took his wife in his arms and she came to her senses. The girl looked at Lin Feng, heard his voice and was happy that he saved her. Jiang Xinyue was very afraid that in the end it would all turn out to be just a dream and did not allow herself to fully believe in the reality of what was happening. But her husband promised that this was not a dream and apologized for being late, and then kissed the girl, investing all his love. The war hero called Shaoqing so that the girl would take his wife home and let him be examined by a doctor, since it was too early for him to open up. Lin Feng's servant smiled contentedly and was ready to carry out any order of her master. In just 2 years, the world has forgotten about the great Lin and now the Song family will only be a stepping stone to his return. Fei soon returned to the Jiang family home. He entered the bedroom and saw that little Yuxing was standing near the bed and sleeping, leaning on the mattress. The girl felt a man's hands lifting her into the air and woke up. When she turned around, she saw Dad. Jiang Rui hugged her father and cried. She admitted that she was very afraid of not seeing him again. Lin Feng told his daughter that he went to see his mother, and then the girl became worried that they did not return together. The man reassured Yuxin and promised that her mother would also return soon. Dad pinched the girl's cheek, and this helped her calm down. The little girl was worried about her father's health, but the man convinced her that he was just tired and it was time for them to sleep, and that her mother would return a little later. Lin Feng considered it his responsibility to provide Xian with a carefree life. The man was about to go to his room when the girl grabbed his hand. Yuxin looked upset, and she was tormented by the question of whether her father would leave during the night, because he had already lied to her once about a surprise for her mother. Dad smiled at the baby and admitted that his plans had changed and now under no circumstances should he tell anyone about his awakening. Xian promised that she would not even tell her mother, and she and her father swore to keep the secret in their little ones. Meanwhile, a doctor at a Jiangzhou hospital was carefully reviewing the tests of one of the patients. She came to Song Yan's room and told him that the only way out was surgery, but the risks to his life were very high. The young heir of the Song family felt like he was signing a death sentence when the doctor said that their only option was amputation. This terrible news made the guy scream throughout the hospital, promising to make Lin Feng pay for this. Jiang Xinyue was not sleeping peacefully in her bedroom, and her daughter was patiently waiting for her mother to wake up. Finally, the girl opened her eyes and realized that she was in her room, and then she heard Yusun's voice. Xinyue's head was a little dizzy after the drug, and her daughter laughed joyfully and said that her mother was a real sleepyhead. The girl remembered the events of last night and immediately began to be interested in the question of her returning home. Senior, Jiang immediately looked at her husband and saw that he was also confined to a wheelchair as always. Xinyue began to cry when she realized that she had dreamed everything and it was not Lin Feng who saved her. Yusun took her mother's face in her little hands and asked her not to cry, because Dad would definitely protect them. Suddenly, Xinyue's mother burst into the room, demanding an explanation from her daughter about who gave her the pill. The eldest Jiang hugged her daughter and said that Song Yan slipped a drug into her wine, but someone managed to save her. The woman turned around and was ready to go and deal with those who dared to encroach on the honor of her daughter. But she stopped abruptly and asked if the girl was really talking about the heir of the Song family, young Master Song Yan. Jiang Xinyue was 100% sure of his guilt, so she confirmed her words. But Jiang Xinya understood what this could lead to and wanted to pretend that this was all a misunderstanding and it was pointless for her future groom to do such things. Li Qiuying did not want to quarrel with the Song family since they depended on them, and decided that her daughter was simply deceiving her. Such distrust of the grandmother made little Yusun very angry and she shouted that mother never lies. The woman threatened the child with her fist and reminded that children are silent when adults speak, otherwise they will get their ass. Lin Feng understood that his wife would not be believed, and would also be forced to ask for forgiveness, so as not to lose the patronage of the Song family. Li Qiuying exhaled heavily and admitted that it was not important, she was more worried about whether Mr. Song was okay. At that moment, the woman's phone rang and she felt a small wave of fear. Mr. Song himself called her, and she didn't know what to do. Jiang Xiyan advised her mother to answer quickly. The woman picked up the phone and everyone in the room heard the man shouting that Xinyue must come to Song's house, otherwise their family will disappear. The conversation ended there, and Zhang's family begged her to admit the mistake and apologize in order to save the family. The girl was very upset by her family's attitude, but she was forced to agree to go to the Song family. Jiang Rui didn't like the fact that her mother was forced to apologize to her abuser, she felt it was unfair. When Lin Feng and Xian were alone, the girl asked her dad to tell her mom that he was better, but his father offered to take him to the park so he could punish the bad guys. Then grandma would stop scolding mom, and this was Yusun's main goal, so she was very happy about it. The father reminded his daughter that this would still remain their secret, and they prepared to save their mother. Meanwhile, Mr. Song stood over his son, who was in pain, and pondered his next steps. His wife cried and lamented that they could not allow anyone to do this to the only heir of the Song family. The man was angry at the woman's tears, which did not help the matter in any way, especially since he believed that the woman had spoiled their son. Mr. Song believed that the boy had grown up to be trash and was ruining the family's reputation because of one woman. Yen tried to convince his father that he had been framed. The man became furious at these words from his son and believed that he was an idiot who wanted to drag them into a hole. However, Mrs. Song believed that her son was right and Xinyue was planning something or even targeting their company. Mr. Song walked to the window and said that her fears were unfounded because the Jiang family was small compared to him, and the man did not consider them dangerous, even if there was someone behind them, but he considered it necessary to interrogate Xinyue. Song Yan continued to insist that he was beaten by the crippled Lin Feng, so the Jiang family arranged everything. Mr. Song promised his son that once they captured Lin Feng, they would rip off his arms and legs and make him feel like a eunuch. The conversation among the Song family members was not finished when a stranger appeared in their house. Lin Feng appeared in the Song family's study, an overwhelming and oppressive aura emanated from him, and the war hero was very interested in how much trouble their family had caused that they decided to hire so many guard dogs. The lady hid behind her husband, and the man asked who he was and why he came to their house. Song Yan stood up from the bed and shouted that this was the same Lin Feng who beat him. Mr. Song saw an impudent guy who dared to break into their house and said that he had a lot of courage. The war hero threw one of the guards of the Song house at the feet of the owners and asked whether Xinyue should apologize to them. The guy looked at all the people in this room with disdain in his eyes and considered them not worthy of his wife's apology. Senior Mr. Song raised his hand and ordered his men to immediately seize the insolent man. However, Lin Feng said with a satisfied smile that their people were unable to stand up, but he could give them time to call others. Mr. Song was furious and promised that such a kid would not get away with all this. He gave the guy one last chance to try to save his life. The great warrior Lin was only angered by such pitiful threats, and he asked the man if he was so sure of his words. In 1 second, the guy crossed the room and found himself behind the man who dared to threaten him. Lin Feng struck the head of the Song family in the face and he fell to the floor, and the guy himself explained that he could get away with anything. Mrs. Song watched in panic as her husband was beaten. She even wanted to shout something to him, but she fell silent and covered her mouth with her hand as soon as their uninvited guest glanced in her direction. The man tried to get up from the floor, while telling him that he didn't care who was behind the guy, because he would kill everyone. Lin Feng appeared in front of Mr. Song in an instant and said that the man was just as much trash as his son. Song Yen watched his father's opponent in fear and thought with horror that the guy did not look like a human. He rather gave off a demonic aura that made his opponent's entire body tremble in fear. The war hero lifted Mr. Song by the throat and listened to others' pleas for mercy with a bored face. These pleas were joined by Mrs. Song, who threw herself at Mr. Lin's feet and promised to pay any amount. Song Yen also realized that without his father the company would end, so he began to beg to let him go, promising not to pester Xinyue anymore. All their persuasion to resolve the conflict peacefully sounded simply ridiculous to Lin Feng, but he threw the man aside. Mr. Song found himself on the floor trying to clear his throat while his wife worried nearby. Great warrior Lin gave their family 1 day to offer their sincere apologies to Xinyue, otherwise their family would disappear. He also ordered not to tell anyone that they had seen him, because in this case they would die extremely painfully. Mr. Song listened to the boy's conditions and felt a wave of anxiety from his last words. The door to the office slammed shut, and the Song family was left alone again. The head of the family still felt fear and worry when the lady said that Lin Feng had left. The man felt humiliated and was not going to just let the boy get away with it. These feelings made him furious, and he wanted to find people and wipe out the Jiang family as soon as possible. Mr. Song got up from the floor and began making all the necessary calls while his wife checked the hallway of their house. But instead of giving orders, the man was forced to hear that there was bad news for him. It turned out that all investors stopped cooperating with the company, and banks stopped issuing loans. The phone fell out of the director's hands. The man did not understand how his company, with hundreds of millions, could go bankrupt in just 1 day. Song Yen was wrapped in a blanket and tried to ask his father what they should do now. But the man was too engrossed in thoughts of Lin Feng's origins for him to be able to do such a thing. Young Master Song also didn't understand how this was possible and said that he used to think that the Jiang family needed their money. The blanket was thrown off Song Yen, causing the young man to cover himself with his hands and be afraid of the sudden movement. Director Song loomed over him and shouted that their corporations were his life's work, so Yen would immediately take the money and run to apologize to Xinyue. Young Master Song did not fully believe that his own father was forcing him to apologize for his mistake. But the man was so furious that he began to shake the guy and shout that if the girl did not forgive him, he would kill Yen himself. Li Qiuying left the house with her eldest daughter and ordered her to agree to all the demands of the Song family, otherwise they would be finished. Jiang Xinyue did not feel strong enough to argue with her mother, so she obediently agreed with her. They walked towards the gate while the woman wanted Xinyue to put on a more benevolent expression. But they didn't have time to leave the Jiang family's territory, because right outside the gate, the young master of the Song family was sitting on his knees. Li Qiuying tried to raise the guy from his knees and convinced him that it was their fault and that Xinyue should apologize. But the heir of the Song family threw her hand away from him and began to shout that yesterday's situation was only his fault and begged her to forgive him. Since this was not enough, the guy began to actively call himself various curses and continue to beg for forgiveness. Tauka, the young master's behavior greatly surprised the Jiang family, and they covered their mouths in surprise. Li Qiuying did not understand what caused Mr. Song to behave this way, and Xinyue felt that he was planning something. The guy grabbed the girl's skirt and begged for forgiveness, promising that he would never molest her again. Jiang Xinyue felt disgusted and said that she would only forgive the guy if he never bothered her again. Song Yan began to cry with happiness, and he swore that he would not pester her and would never even catch her eye. This reaction surprised the girl, but she was not going to find out what caused his words. In addition to verbal apologies, the guy gave a check of $1 million as moral compensation. Li Qiuying wasted no time and immediately took the check, rejoicing at what a polite person Mr. Song was. The woman looked at the check carefully, and Xinyue decided not to continue her participation in this and said that she was leaving. Noticing that the heir of the Song family was patiently waiting for her order, the girl released him, and the guy hastened to hide from her eyes. Li Qiuying tried to find out from her daughter who helped her cope with such an influential family, but the girl had no answers to her mother's questions. The woman thought about it and came to the conclusion that they were helped by yesterday's savior, who turned out to be quite influential. Song Yan ran away from the Jiang family's house and hoped that everything would be fine now and he would rectify the situation. However, in the park, he came across Mr. Lin Feng and his little daughter. The man glared at the Song heir with a menacing gaze. Young Master Song reported that Lady Jiang accepted his apology and asked if there would be more orders, and the war hero hoped that they would never meet again. The guy was about to leave when Lin Feng's voice made him stop. The man just wanted to remind that if Yen told others about him, his entire family would be destroyed. Out of fear, Song Yen fell to his knees, wet himself and shouted that he would definitely keep Mr. Lin's secret. Xinyue's mother did not want to calm down and continued to insist that her daughter divorce the vegetable. She tried to manipulate the girl and pressured her to think about her feelings. Just at this time, a happy Yusen returned home with her father and told her mother that they had returned. Jiang Xinyue was surprised when she saw her daughter, and Xian said that she took her dad out to bask in the sun. The girl immediately began hugging her daughter. She praised the girl and told him how smart he was. But Grandma Yusen did not support her daughter's joy and made a disdainful sound in their direction. The girl leaned over to her mother and whispered that Dad had dealt with the bad uncles, but this was only their secret. Jiang Xinyue laughed with her daughter and reminded her that she had to go to school tomorrow and promised to take her herself. Yusen got ready to go to school and showed herself to her dad before leaving the house to see if she looked good. Jiang Xinyue smiled as she watched this, but she had to call Xian so as not to be late for the preparatory school. Lin Feng observed his family and felt happy to be involved in their lives even in this state. As soon as the girls left the room, the Great One called Shaoqing, who was already kneeling in front of him a second later. The man asked the repaired woman to take him out of the house and follow Xian to accompany her to school. Yusen really wanted her parents to pick her up from school together, so Xinyue promised her a reward for good behavior. The Zhou family stood at the school gate. The head of the father of the family was rewound, and the rest of the members smugly blocked the way. Elder Jiang hugged her daughter close and prepared to defend herself. She asked why they were standing here. The man pointed to his forehead and blamed Lin Feng for his injury and promised that this time they would not leave so easily. The woman wanted to get 200,000 for moral damages and showed Xiaohu, who was so scared that he did not eat and had lost weight in the past 2 days. Xiaohu's father had no intention of backing down when a vulnerable woman stood in front of him, and shouted at her to suggest a way out of the situation. Jiang Xinyue believed that her husband had been lied to and warned that she would not allow them to live if Yusen was harmed. The man came close to the girl and began shouting that she could believe him or not, but he would finish her off. Xian came forward and yelled at the bad uncle, reminding him that if he touched Mom, Dad would come and beat him. Father Xiaohu sensed Lin Feng's frightening aura again and decided that he did not want to get involved with him. So he took his family and ran away, although he promised that this was not the end of their showdown. His wife did not understand why they were running away if the man promised to cope with the disabled person, but the head of the family had a bad feeling. Shaoqing asked if she should teach them a lesson, but the Great One said that she would have another chance in the future. Jiang Xinyue leaned over to her daughter and explained that she needed company, so Xian should go in herself. Just at this moment, the principal appeared next to the school gate, happy to see the Jiang family. He approached the young mother and asked her to take her time as he had something to tell her. Xinyue greeted Director Yang and couldn't even imagine what questions he might have for her. But the men were in no hurry to talk on the street and suggested going into the office and discussing everything there. The girl thought that this had something to do with his help in completing the documents and followed him. In the office, Principal Yang informed her that Xian's academic contract was ending this year and plans for next year needed to be discussed. Jiang Xinhua didn't understand how this could happen if they agreed for 2 years, but only 6 months had passed. The director hesitated and began to talk about the limited number of seats and the lack of reservations. The girl reminded the man that she had paid him 50,000 when they entered into an agreement. The man sat back and explained that the 50,000 was an advance payment for admission. This greatly angered Xinhua, since she paid that money for the first year of study, but the director only laughed disgustingly. He decided that the young mother had fallen for his trick and said that he could help them get a place in school. There were 2 ways to get Director Yang's help. The first one will pay him 1 million to buy out the place. And also do not forget that his commission will be added to this amount. The man understood that this option would not suit the girl. Xinhua knew that she had that kind of money, but the check was with her mother and she would not give it back, so she was ready to listen to the second option. Director Yang put his feet up on the table and said that he had heard about her husband's condition and hoped that he didn't need to explain the details of the second method. Jiang Xinhua was furious at the director's words. She slammed her hands on his desk and called him disgusting. The principal adjusted her glasses and said that her daughter would not be able to attend prep school on her terms. But the girl was not going to fall for this man's suspicious schemes, and she decided that she would send her daughter to another school. Before leaving, she noticed that the people working at Haitan School were such bastards that her daughter did not belong here. Principal Yang was angry, and after Xinhua said that none of the preparatory schools in the city would accept her daughter, he shouted that the girl would return tomorrow and would beg him on his knees to take the girl back. Shao Qing told the great that this school has a good environment and the lady paid a lot of money so that their daughter could study here. One thing caught her attention and she called her master. The man turned towards the exit from the school and saw his wife running away in tears. He immediately realized that something had not gone according to plan in the director's office and decided to go take a look on his own. At this time, the Zhou family appeared in the director's office. The father of the family greeted the man as if he were an old acquaintance. Director Yang became nervous and put a smile on his face. He tried to pretend that he was very happy to see this family. But in fact, the man simply did not want to spoil the relationship with the one who brings him a lot of money. Daluan complained about the student body. The man excitedly asked who Mr. Zhou was talking about and promised to immediately expel the brat. Daluan's wife said what she did on vacation to that fox who recently left the office. Principal Yang realized that they were talking about Lin Yusen and said that at the end of the semester, she would no longer attend school. However, the Zhou family was not happy with this decision, and Daluan promised to pay another million if the girl came out right away. The director promised to solve the problem as quickly as possible, and he was glad that he could make a fortune so easily. At that moment, the door to the director's office opened with a loud bang and Lin Feng's foot appeared on the threshold. The Zhou family had lost its courage, but the director did not understand who he was dealing with and tried to show his power. Mr. Lin's mere appearance made the couple tremble with fear. Director Yang did not pay attention to the changed situation in the room, trying to find out what the man was doing here. Zhou Daluan received another severe slap in the face, and his wife was sure that now they would die. The director was starting to get nervous, but still tried to call the uninvited guest to order. He didn't succeed, and he was truly scared when Mr. Lin promised to cut out his tongue for one more word. After that, the guy returned to the showdown with Daluan and asked why he stopped swearing so zealously. The war hero pinned the man's hands to the floor and informed him that if he dared to touch his wife, he could say goodbye to his hands. Lin Feng also cast a meaningful glance towards Xiaohu's mother and she realized that this also concerned her. The woman knelt down and said that they had now finally accepted their mistake. Mr. Lin agreed to let the Zhou family go only if they left the city today. Director Yang didn't understand why this boy allowed himself to do such things, but the married time was in a hurry to leave. The war hero sat down on the sofa and said that he was giving the director the opportunity to explain why he was focusing on his daughter. And only after these words the man realized that the man in his office was Yusen's father. However, Director Yang decided that he could threaten this man with the murder of his own daughter. The man was not going to let this guy intimidate him and said that he would only leave his daughter in this institution if his wife slept with him. Lin Feng felt rage begin to boil in his blood due to such impudence. So he immediately got up from the couch and kicked the man, breaking his glasses. The war hero did not understand what a person like Director Yang could count on. The man was sitting on the floor and holding his cheek, his whole body was shaking and he couldn't believe he had just been hit. Yang Tian took out his phone and shouted out of rage that he would make Lin Feng pay for what he had done. But the man didn't have time to call anyone, because another person burst into the office. The director rushed to him in the hope that he could help deal with the guy, but his boss's face expressed only rage as he shouted that since a man allows himself to use his power, he is not worthy to work in schools. Director Yang couldn't believe that this situation was counting him out and threatening to fire him. The boss did not want to die because of his subordinate's mistake and fired the director and also ordered him to leave the city. Yang Tian felt defeated and did not understand how a vegetable could be some kind of big shot that ruined his life. The boss pushed the former director and ordered him to immediately apologize to the master, otherwise he would pay in blood. The boss also apologized to Mr. Lin and promised to immediately rectify the situation. However, this did not impress Lin Feng as he was capable of dealing with his own problems. The boss realized that the former director was still silent and said that he was not going to save him. Yang Tian then began to actively apologize. The war hero leaned over to the man and said that he was very mistaken when he thought that he could manipulate people with the help of wealth and power. Therefore, from now on, he will have neither money nor a home, the only thing he can do is beg. His boss agreed that this was a deserved punishment and promised Mr. Lin that his daughter would receive a better education. The man was very glad that the mayor managed to call in time, and he was able to save his life. Lin Feng decided not to interfere anymore and asked everyone present to keep his appearance a secret. The men, of course, promised to remain silent, but this incident made it clear that someone upstairs already knew about his awakening. Jiang Xinyue walked through the park. I thought that today all the misfortunes fell on her head. Just at that moment, her younger sister appeared next to her, asking if the girl was going to the company. Xinyue shared her problem. It turned out that not one school wanted to accept Xian. The younger sister was sure that it was due to lack of status and mentioned the song air, but this made Xinyue furious. She walked away from her sister and said that from that day on they would break all ties with this family. Then Xinya said that she had heard from her mother about her mysterious boyfriend and suggested asking him for help. But the elder sister told her not to talk nonsense, and the man helped her out of pity. Jiang Xinya thought her sister was stupid because she was still holding on to vegetables instead of finding someone influential. After their short conversation, the younger sister went to the store, leaving Xinyue to deal with her problems alone. But before she could plunge into sad thoughts again, a call came on her phone. After Jiang Xinya said goodbye to her sister, she headed to a cafe nearby. There she met Song Yen. The girl saw his condition and decided that he was sick and just looked so bad. The guy was angry and thought that he could take it out on his younger sister, since Mr. Lin was looking after the older one. Xinya didn't understand why the guy was angry with her, because she just wanted to remind him that he shouldn't lag behind if he wanted to get her sister. Song Yen smiled and said that the girl really wants to take him to the grave. The younger sister realized that the man had worthy competition and said that she considered him the best candidate. After these words, Song Yen decided that he would take it out on this girl in order to somehow tame his desire. The guy sincerely thanked her, but at the same time he looked very creepy. Therefore, Jiang Xinya decided that she no longer needed to stay by his side and hurried away. At this time, Song took out his phone and watched as the girl left. He called his friends and told them that there was a good job for them. Xinya walked down the street and thought that it was surprising how quickly the young Song would give up. The girl was very upset when she realized that she would not receive her bag in the near future. Two giggling guys walked next to her, to whom the blonde did not pay much attention. The guys looked at the girl carefully and thanked Song Yen for a really good job. They were going to block the path and have a lot of fun using Jiang Xinya. Soon they appeared in front of the girl, giggling disgustingly and asking if she was walking here alone. Younger Jiang was scared and couldn't understand what these two suspicious guys wanted from her. The guys examined her body and laughed disgustingly, as they agreed that they wanted her body. Shao Qing asked the Great One if she should save the girl, but he decided to teach Xinya a lesson first. The blonde was ready to do anything for money, but, nevertheless, she was his wife's family. Meanwhile, the guys drove the girl into an alley, and she begged to be released, promising to pay any money. But since Mr. Song had already paid them for the work, they didn't want to waste such an amazing opportunity to have fun. Jiang Xinya heard a familiar name and did not understand why the one she helped would want to harm her. The girl screamed trying to escape, but her loud screams only brought more pleasure to the guys. The blonde's blouse was torn and the guys could see her bra. The girl cried and begged for help. Just at this moment, Xiaoqing appeared behind the guys. She was an excellent warrior and was able to neutralize the largest guy with one blow. And then, with the same ease, knock him out with his partner. Xinya was sitting on the floor covering her chest. Then she looked at the girl she saved and said not to thank her. The savior ordered not to interfere in the affairs of the elder sister, otherwise she would not come to help. After these words, the girl left the alley and left the blonde alone. Xinya was still crying and seriously thought about who was standing up to protect her sister. Jiang Xinya covered her body and felt guilty for forcing her sister to spend time with Song Yan. Xiaoqing was once again next to the Great One and they hoped that the girl had learned something. The subordinate reminded Lin Feng about the Binhai celebration and wanted to know if the Great One would appear at it. The war hero did not see the need to appear at this event, so he said that he would not go. A guard came to the Song heir and reported that 2 of his men had been killed. The guy was very surprised when he realized that both guys had failed the task and called them trash. Song Yan was not going to stop because of one failure and promised himself that the end of their family was just beginning. The guy came up with a great way to deal with Jiang and called his good friend Mr. Liu. A lot of time had passed since Jiang Xinyue was attacked. As the time for the Binhai celebration approached, Mr. Song appeared at Jiang's house again. The man assured Xinyue that he had decided to fully compensate for his wrongdoing and came only with good intentions. Li Qiuying did not notice the strange catch and joyfully supported other people's words about compensation for moral damage. Song Yan pretended to feel obligated and asked if the girls knew about the celebration that would take place in 2 weeks. Xinyue's mother immediately became excited because this Binhai celebration was a very important event, and the woman hoped that they would be held for the celebration. However, it turned out that even the Song family did not deserve to receive an invitation, let alone see anyone off. But instead of his family, Song Yan offered to introduce Xinyue to one of his influential friends. Lin Feng's wife had no desire to listen further, so she stood up from her seat and said that she was not interested. Li Qiuying did not let her daughter leave. She grabbed Xinyue's hand tightly and asked her to take advantage of such a good opportunity. And while the woman tried to convince her daughter, Song Yan thought that he himself would go to the celebration if the girl agreed. The door to the hall opened and little Yusin appeared on the threshold along with her dad. The heir of the Song family did not expect that this demon would return so soon, so he became very nervous. The guy bowed to the girls and asked them to inform Xinyue about the decision as soon as possible. Li Qiuying believed that it was Elder Zhang's responsibility to accept such an invitation. Xinya, who after the recent incident was in no hurry to trust Song Yan so willingly, came down into the hall. She told her mother about this, but she became furious because she was sure that the young master had been framed. The younger Jiang did not argue, but doubt settled in her soul that the criminals attacked her because of Yan. Xinyue remembered that yesterday her grandfather called her and ordered the girl to come to the main house. Li Qiuying was not very happy about this prospect, and she did not understand why the man needed her daughter. Jiang Xinyue didn't know the details, but she felt it was necessary to leave as soon as possible. The main house of the Jiang family was much larger than the country house in which the Xinyue family lived. Grandfather sat at the head of the table and said displeasedly that their family had not received an invitation to the celebration. The guy noticed that although their affairs have improved this year, influential families still do not pay attention to them. The man glanced at Xinyue and hinted that someone could help them attract attention. The girl was very surprised when she realized that this part of her family wanted active action from her. Grandfather recalled that although he did not bother them much these years, he always provided funds for their needs. Grandfather hasn't worried much about Xinyue in recent years, but he always provided funds when needed. Elder Jiang was forced to admit that the head of the family was right, and one of her cousins snorted disdainfully. The old man folded his hands in front of him and said that he needed the girl to do him a favor. Xinyue thought that grandfather was joking because she sincerely did not understand what she could do. The man who was the old man's right hand asked disdainfully if she didn't want to help the family. The cousin noticed that the girl pretended not to understand, and Shinue herself believed that she could not solve a problem that the head could not cope with. However, the old man explained that an influential person was interested in her and could help them get to the Binhai celebration. Senior, Jiang felt growing anxiety and said that no one could be interested in her since she already had a child. Her sister smiled sarcastically and added that the girl should thank them for the opportunity. Uncle Jiang also decided to play on this and convinced the girl that they were helping her. Jiang Shinue was furious. The girl jumped up from her seat and told everyone that she was a married woman, not a toy. But her words did not have the desired effect, and the uncle decided that it was better to be a toy than to serve a vegetable. Senior, Jiang tried to defend her husband's honor, but her cousin took advantage of the moment and transferred the insult to herself. Grandfather Jiang slammed the table and promised that if his granddaughter complied with his request, the family would never forget it. The blonde was not going to agree and was ready to go to a construction site to rearrange bricks, but not to sell her body. She didn't understand how anyone could ask for something like that, but the old man wasn't going to take no for an answer. The cousin began to put pressure on the girl about the consequences of her actions and threaten losses. But Jiang Shinue continued to stand her ground and believed that only she had the right to decide what to do with her body. The sister laughed evilly when she agreed with this, but casually said that no one knew if anything would happen to her family. The girl was jealous of Shinue's beauty and hated her, so she happily took the opportunity to pin the blonde to the table, after which she threw it on the floor. Yuyan shouted that this was her last chance to make the right decision and the lives of her loved ones would depend on it. Although it was painful for Shinue to admit that she was being threatened by her family, she agreed to give up her principles for the sake of her daughter and husband. The old man waved his hand in her direction and promised to save the life of her family if the girl received an invitation to the celebration. Frustrated, the blonde left the main house of the Jiang family, hearing afterward that she would receive a call. Jiang Shinue returned home and immediately went to the park with her husband. The girl was thinking about today while she was swinging on a swing. She decided to tell her husband that her grandfather had told him that someone influential was interested in her, and Shinue was obliged to entertain him if she did not want to bring trouble to Lin Feng and Xian. The girl sadly said that she would have to get an entrance ticket, because otherwise they would kill her family. The blonde hugged her husband. She didn't want to betray him, but Shinue wasn't ready to lose them. She apologized to Lin Feng because this was the only way she could protect them from the family. The god of war was furious at this treatment of his wife and his hands lit up with blue fire. The man put his wife to sleep and sat her in a chair. Lin Feng was going to get everyone who dared to bully the girl. Strength filled Mr. Lin's body along with anger, and he called Shaoqing to him. The subordinate instantly appeared nearby. She bowed to the great, and was ready to carry out any order. Lin Feng decided that he would no longer hide his awakening, and ordered everyone to inform everyone about his presence at the Binhai celebration. Li Qiuying was confused when she saw her father in her house and did not understand why he came. Cousin Shinue walked next to a handsome young man whom she introduced as Mr. Lu. The guy sat down next to Li Qiuying and began to straighten his hair while the woman tried to understand what was happening. The old man ordered to bring Shinue down and not to make such an influential person like Mr. Lu wait. The woman explained that her daughter took the child to school and still decided to ask why they were there. The cousin reported that this gentleman liked Shinue and if she did not bring problems, then the Jiang family would not need anything. Li Qiuying beamed with happiness, and the girl contemptuously told her that it was all thanks to the efforts of her grandfather. The Jiang sisters took Yusen to school, and now Shinya happily announced their return to everyone. Mr. Lu began to look at the girls' bodies and praised Song Yan's choice. The younger Jiang's cheerfulness diminished when she saw her grandfather, who promised to leave them alone. The old man called Shinue and introduced her to Mr. Lu, whom she was to accompany while Yuyan took care of the child. The young man cleared his throat and, looking forward to their further meeting, said that he was glad to see Shinue. The mother brought her eldest daughter closer to the young master and ordered her not to waste this great opportunity. The grandfather was dissatisfied with his granddaughter's behavior because she did not greet the guest properly. But Mr. Lu did not consider this something terrible and added that shyness at the first meeting is completely normal. The guy decided to introduce himself first, Lu Jie began to say which company he owned when the girl turned away disdainfully. The old man was holding back with all his might so as not to put the little crap in its place. Mr. Lu did not like this attitude and asked if the Jin family was not welcoming him. Yu Yan hit Xinyue and shouted that she was just a scoundrel for allowing herself to behave like that. The girl towered over the blonde and demanded that she immediately apologize to Mr. Lu. Yu Yan was interrupted by the guy and said that the presence of the great Lin had recently become known and getting tickets had become much more difficult. Jiang Xinyue sat on the sofa and covered the abrasion on her cheek while Lu Jie threatened that with such an attitude they might not receive an invitation. The blonde's cousin clung to the gentleman and assured him that grandfather would solve everything. An ominous smile appeared on the young man's face, and he added that he would need one more person. Mr. Lu looked at Xinya and said that the girl would also go with him. Younger Jiang didn't like this news very much. However, the old man only lit a cigarette and told the guy that he could take both sisters with him. Li Qiuying yelled at Xinya, who didn't want to go, and explained that her sister would protect her from trouble. Mr. Lu hugged the confused girl to himself and ordered the sisters to go with him. Lu Jie believed that it would only benefit the girls to accompany him for one evening and receive their reward. Jiang Xinyue didn't want to participate in this, but the guy reminded her of the safety of her daughter and husband. Yu Yan was happy to see how the beauty Xinyue obeyed the family rules and threw away her principles. Lin Feng watched this scene carefully, hiding behind the wall of the stairwell. And when the girls' Coles called Shaoqing and cancelled the invitation to the celebration for the Lu family, and also ordered to invite only Xinyue, younger sister Jiang tried to stay close to Xinyue as they approached the gate. Mr. Lu was about to leave Jiang's house first, but Shaoqing appeared in front of him and ordered him to stop. Lu Jie did not understand who the girl was, but then she said that the guy could not take the lady with him to the celebration. Lin's subordinate was serious and told him to either get lost or prepare to die. The young man lit up when he decided that the beauty in front of him was simply jealous and wanted to go to the celebration herself. But his mood instantly fell when Shaoqing reported that the Lu family's invitation had been rescinded. Jiang Xian watched the girl and wondered who she was to constantly appear next to them. Lu Jie did not believe that a family with a multi-billion-dollar fortune could not be invited and decided that the girl in front of him was just an actress. Shaoqing is tired of messing around with the spoiled heir of the Lu family, and she snorted at such ignorance. Jiang Xinyue took her sister away from her and asked her to leave here and not get involved in the conflict. The young man had no intention of letting the Jiang sisters leave and threatened to make Xinyue crawl on her knees in front of him. The great man's subordinate could not tolerate the insult of her mistress and gave him a severe slap in the face. The guy fell to the ground and looked at Shaoqing in rage. He shouted that for such an offense she would die. Naturally, the girl understood perfectly well that his words were empty, and in order to stop someone else's flow of words, she threatened to cut off her tongue. Old man Jiang appeared in the courtyard. He was angry because of Xinyue's misdeed and believed that now they would not pay off the Lu family for the rest of their lives. Lin Feng's wife was confused when Grandpa blamed her because she had no influence on the course of events. The man wanted to yell at her, but was interrupted by Shaoqing, who reminded her that the Lu family would not be present at the celebration. In addition to this information, the girl conveyed to them that of the entire Jiang family, only Xinyue was invited to the Binhai celebration. Of course, this surprised everyone present, especially Elder Jiang, who did not know Great Lin to receive such gifts from him. Shaoqing bowed her head to the lady and promised that an exclusive invitation would soon be delivered to her. The old man did not believe the girl, because he did not believe that exclusive invitations were given out to people from the street for the celebration. Just at that moment, a stately man appeared near the gate and said that he had to deliver an invitation to Xinyue. Now grandfather could not doubt other people's words, but he couldn't understand how the blonde could be invited. Mr. Lu stood up from the ground and recognized the man as Uncle Wang. The guy didn't expect to see him here, but it worked to his advantage. Lu Jie told everyone that this man was the organizer of the celebration, and he would now prove that his family was invited. Uncle Wang looked down on the beaten man and asked who he was and why he was acting so boorishly. Mr. Lu pointed to himself and reminded that he was the heir of the Lu family, and he and his father Lu Wang had been drinking with them. The organizer of the celebration remembered that this year the Lu family could not attend because of the heir, and it was he who was now in front of him. Now old man Jiang received confirmation that the Liu family was deprived of attending the celebration from the organizer himself, and was forced to accept it. Uncle Wang asked his assistant to throw Liu Jia out so that he would not bother the Lord with his presence. After that, the man smiled sweetly and reached for the letter, at the same time wondering who Jiang Xinyue was here. The girl was very worried when she said that this man was looking for her. But Uncle Wang bowed and extended an exclusive invitation from Mr. Lin and asked that they be honored by his appearance at the celebration. Jiang Xinyue accepted the invitation and asked if Mr. Lin was the same person who rented the hotel for her birthday. The man confirmed that this was not the first time that Great Lin had given the lady luxurious gifts. Jiang Xinya decided that giving her sister in marriage to Great Lin would be a great outcome for their family, so she asked if they could meet him. Lin Feng observed the situation from his bedroom window and thought that his wife's younger sister really had a short memory. Uncle Wang explained to the girl that the gentleman had a lot of important things to do right now, so he had no time for guests. Ah Xiao looked carefully at the blonde and reminded her that she should not interfere. Xinya sensed the seriousness of Great Lin's subordinate's words and trembled in fear. And then, slightly irritably, she answered the girl that her sister would not give up her vegetable in any case. The organizer of the holiday had fulfilled his mission and now bowed before the lady, hoping to meet her at the Binhai celebration. Shao Qing reminded them that their duties were completed and they could leave. The Jiang family was left alone. The old man approached his granddaughters and tried to figure out who this person was who was at Xinyue's birthday party. But the cousin snatched the ticket from the girl and mockingly asked what methods she used to conquer such a guy. Yu Yin believed that if only one family member could go to the celebration, it would be her. Jiang Xinyue didn't want to give up her seat because she really wanted to check whether that person was Lin Feng. But her grandfather reined her in and reminded her that the family could stop caring about her husband and daughter. Xinyue didn't understand why grandfather treated Lin Feng this way, but as it turned out, the old man believed that he had now become a burden to their family. Elder sister Jiang was forced to reconcile herself and allowed the invitation to be taken away, as long as her family was not affected. Yu Yin was pleased with herself and believed that trash like Xinyue was unworthy of an invitation. Lin Feng and his subordinate watched this. The girl really wanted to go back and teach them a lesson. But the god of war forbade her to do this and promised that in the future he would make them regret their existence. Just then, Shao Qing's phone rang and the school principal said that Yusen had been sent to the hospital. The man heard that his daughter had lost consciousness and ordered his subordinate to start the car immediately. Quite quickly they arrived at the Binhai Central Hospital, where they brought the girl. Lin Yusen lay unconscious on the hospital bed, and the doctor carefully examined the test results. Shao Qing and the Great One entered the room and asked how the little princess was feeling. The doctor said that he had ruled out other options and found that the girl had a relapse of an old disease. Lin Feng sat on the bed and asked if it would be possible to transplant bone marrow to save her again. However, the doctor decided that first they should invite Dr. Li to protect the lady. The Great One was greatly surprised when the doctor remembered Dr. Li. I couldn't believe the man was in town now. It turned out that the doctor returned as soon as he heard the rumor about the awakening of the Great One and is now in the hospital. Lin Feng immediately sent his subordinate to find the doctor and ordered him to be brought quickly. Meanwhile, the doctor decided to ask whether the man knew how serious the princess's illness was. The god of war was severely injured at that time and did not fully understand Xian's condition. It turned out that 2 years ago the princess awakened the imperial and royal blood at the same time. And now her problems were caused by precisely this. The man couldn't believe his ears. But Dr. Li appeared in the room and assured that the great man had nothing to worry about, because the old man had come to help the princess. Old man Li was so happy to see Great Lin that tears appeared in his eyes. This reaction made the men in the room feel uneasy and they looked at him silently. The god of war decided to return to the main conversation as he was concerned about the fusion of blood in his daughter. Normally, no royal imperial blood would be found in the human body at the same time, but there were 3 exceptions. Lin Feng knew that he himself was an exception, and there was also another guy in the capital. He wondered who the 3rd exception was that he had never heard of before. Dr. Li waited for a dramatic pause, and then, with a burst of energy, revealed that the 3rd exception was the little princess. Lin Yusen lay on the bed and began to fidget restlessly, the doctor's aura flying around her. The Great One was beginning to lose patience, so she decided that the best option would be to call Shaoqing. The girl found herself back in the room and almost imperceptibly moved behind the old man. The great man's subordinate held her palm next to someone else's neck and asked the master to explain himself more clearly. Now the man could not talk theatrically and said that he was researching the effect of Imperial blood. Li believed that she should not influence the princess and asked if the Great One wanted to know why this was happening. Lin Feng was at a loss as to where the Imperial bloodline came from, and allowed the girl to let the doctor go. Old Man Li promised that if the little princess was next to him, no one would recognize her as an Imperial affiliation. Lin Feng really hoped for this and decided to trust Dr. Li for now. Shaoqing reminded that the school also had to notify Xinyue, who would soon be here, about the incident. The Great One realized that it was time for him to leave and said that Dr. Li knew how to explain Xian's condition. Yuxing's mother ran through the corridors of the hospital as fast as she could. She was very nervous and didn't even pay attention to Song Yan and Lu Jia coming out of the room. Song became interested in the blonde, but his friend got angry because he didn't want any trouble. Song Yan received a light blow to the head from his friend and admitted that this time he had nothing to do with it. And then it suddenly dawned on him, and he guessed that the girl was worried about the child. Mr. Lu did not understand why they needed this information, and then Song explained that Xinyue would definitely need money for treatment. Lu Jia knew what a poor state the Jiang family was in and prepared to use his chance to make the blonde beg him. Jiang Xinyue burst into the room and worriedly asked what happened to her daughter. Dr. Li asked the woman to be quiet so as not to wake up the little princess. The lady did not expect to see the second person in the room and asked who he was. Dr. Chen introduced his mentor and promised that Yusen was safe. Xinyue had heard Dr. Li Qingfeng called a genius before. Li Qingfeng's doctor thought that Madame Jiang was simply flattering him and snapped his fingers. The little princess began to toss and turn in her bed again and slowly came to her senses. The old man called for the needles and said that the girl would soon wake up thanks to acupuncture. Lin Yusen opened her eyes and tried to find her dad in the room, because she was sure that she heard his voice. Her mother appeared next to her and told her that she had fainted at school and ended up in the hospital. And then she was lucky to meet her grandfather, a doctor who helped her wake up. Xian recognized the man as a brilliant doctor. The old man could not contain his tender feelings and said that the baby was too kind to him. The man leaned over to the girl and began to hug her, and the hair made the child laugh. Jiang Xinyue was worried that she would not be able to pay for the doctor's appointment because she understood that her family would not give her a penny. The man noticed her worries and said that he would not take payment from her, since he came on behalf of Mr. Lin. The little princess could now be convinced that she was not imagining things, and she really heard her father's voice. The girl asked if the doctor could tell her who this gentleman was and why he always helps her. Old Man Li could not tell her someone else's secret and limited himself to the fact that he is the great of the southern border, and the girl will find out the details later. The doctor returned the girl to the bed and handed her a business card to her mother, ordering her to call if necessary. Now that Yusen woke up and the man was convinced that she was okay, he could say goodbye and leave the ward. The girl called her mother and confessed to her that her grandfather was invited by her father, and she heard his voice while she was sleeping. And although Jiang Xinyue did not believe her daughter's words, she decided to agree with her anyway. In fact, the girl really wanted great Mr. Lin to be her husband, because she had never met the unknown gentleman, and Lin Feng's personality would explain a lot. What really bothered her about this theory was the fact that the man did not directly tell her that he had woken up. Lin Yusen noticed that her mother was thinking about something, and these thoughts greatly upset her. But the woman pretended that nothing bothered her, winked at her daughter and asked if they would go home. Then Dr. Chen intervened in their conversation. He said that the little princess should remain under observation for a few more days. Naturally, the girl was worried that she would have to leave Xian alone in the hospital. But her daughter looked inspired and promised her mother that she could have some time on her own. Thus, the girl remained in the hospital and awaited her recovery. The god of war was still in the hospital and was asking his subordinate if she had found information on the head of the Jiang family. Shaoqing did not waste any time and was able to find something strange in a short period of time. The girl reported that everyone in the family was ordinary people, but the third child of Shanhai, who was the father of Xinyue, was of interest. The guy remembered that he met his wife's father only once, and soon he died. The subordinate confirmed this information and said that she found out rumors that believed that the third son was not the heir. Lin Feng became interested in this information and realized that if this was true, then the status of his wife's father was in question. Li said that with the help of his position in society he was able to find out that the emperor had fair-haired heirs. This fact could mean that Smoo's father was a descendant of the emperor, but it was impossible to know for sure. The old man admitted that he had requests. First, he wanted to accept the princess as disciples. Lin Feng allowed the man to teach the girl to control her abilities and asked what else he needed. It turned out that he wanted to attend the celebration, since 5 representatives of the imperial blood and 12 royal ones were no longer there. Xinyue had no choice and had to leave her daughter in the hospital and ask her to listen to Dr. Chen. Jiang Xinyue promised Lin Yusen that she would definitely come to her after work. Mom patted her little princess on the head as she assured her that she would be fine. The girl asked Dr. Chen to take care of the girl and left the room with a calm soul. But before she could leave the hospital, Jiang Yuyan called. The blonde didn't understand what else she might need, but I still had to answer the call. Then she heard her being ordered to be with the company in half an hour. The lady went to the office and when she approached the financial department she heard loud screams. Yuyan stood inside with a glass of coffee. She furiously shouted at the employees, asking what they were doing there. The blonde didn't want to see her cousin, but she needed to find out what case they were looking for her for. The girl turned to Xinyue and was surprised that she was asking such stupid questions. Her cousin was a finance manager and was away from work when the company was in crisis. Yuyan threw coffee at Xinyue, but the lady managed to dodge and reminded her that she had asked for time off today. The girl didn't believe this and promised to deduct half a month's salary for absenteeism, and next time to throw her out altogether. This state of affairs did not suit the blonde, and she tried to reason with her sister. However, it was no use because the girl believed that their company was in crisis because of people like Xinyue. The blonde did not consider that the crisis lay on her shoulders and reminded that all bills go through her cousin. Jiang Yuyan noticed the impudent accusation and ordered the company to be brought out of the crisis within 3 days, otherwise she would be fired. 3 days to get the company out of this situation was extremely short and the blonde decided that her boss was joking. However, this was not the case, and the cousin repeated after the outgoing manager that she would fire her if she failed. Jiang Yuyan was pleased with herself and believed that the girl would never cope with this. Then she returned back to her office. After such a stormy showdown, she wanted to brag about it. Mr. Song was sitting in the office, as was Mr. Liu, who were already tired of waiting. The girl promised that there would be no problems with Xinyue and Liu Jia was already looking forward to how he would gain an advantage over the mistress. The only heir of the Song family smiled happily and was confident that this time they would succeed, but his friend was in no hurry to relax, because he remembered that this was not their first plan. The guy didn't want to anger Liu Jia and said that he had already come up with a backup plan anyway. Song Yen questioned Jiang Yuyan's words, which made her worry. Cousin Xinyue tried to wink flirtatiously at the guys and promised that she would not tell anyone anything. The girl believed that she inherited only the best qualities of the family, but the men thought that genetics was not fair to her. Liu Jia wanted to know from his friend what his backup plan was to be prepared for anything, and the only heir, son, hinted that in the blonde's life there are 2 important people for her and 1 very small one. Lin Feng came to his daughter's room and asked if the girl would agree to become Dr. Li's student. The little princess became interested and asked if the man would teach her how to heal people. The god of war looked at his daughter with adoration and wanted to tell her what Li Qingfeng would teach her, but he didn't have time to finish, because Shao Qing appeared behind him and reported on Xinyue's problems in the company. The Jiang family was planning to confiscate the house to pay for the losses, and Mr. Lin asked if someone was behind this. The subordinate reported that several people saw Liu Jia and Song Yen in the office of the director of the financial department. The baby was afraid for her mother, but her father convinced her that he would take care of the problems himself, and his daughter should recover. Shao Qing waited for her master's orders and asked if she should bring those too. The god of war decided that they would deal with them when the time came, but for now they would take care of Jiang Xinyue. The wife of the god of war sat in her office for hours and could not think of a way out of this situation. It turned out that all the partners of Jiang's company withdrew their investments and even the bank refused a loan. The girl was very worried because there was only 1 day left to solve the problem, and the deficit amounted to tens of millions. Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of doors opening, and someone entered Xinyue's office without knocking. This person turned out to be Song Yan, who followed the plan and came to the lady at a difficult moment for her. The guy behaved relaxed and told the girl that he had come to nobly help her out and once again repay her for his actions. Jiang Xinyue got up from the table and did not plan to accept help from Yan, so she asked him to leave. The man put pressure on the girl, reminding her that her family would be left without a home, but even this did not convince the blonde. The guy said that he, as a member of the Song family, always helps others and decided not to annoy the girl further. Therefore, Song Yan headed to the exit and said goodbye, that his offer would be valid until 9 in the morning, and if she changed her mind, let her come to the hotel. Jiang Xinyue was angry at this behavior and shouted that she would never make a deal with such an unscrupulous person. The guy did not argue, but only said that he would wait for her tomorrow at the appointed place. This situation showed the blonde that Jiang Yuyan supported Song Yan and deliberately set her up. All of the company's IOUs were sent to Jiang's country house, and a whole stack of them accumulated. Li Qiuying did not understand why they were coming to them, and decided to ask her daughter if she knew. Now elder Jiang had no choice and said that Yuyan was going to confiscate their house. The woman was furious at this news. She was angry that problems were constantly falling on their family. The woman believed that her daughter could ask Mr. Lin to help them and it would not be a problem for him. But the girl upset her when she admitted that after his birthday she had never seen him and she had no contacts. Of course, Li Qiuying, as always, began to blame her daughter for all the problems in the family, and Xinyue believed her words. She did not want to let her loved ones down, and since the Wang family did not respond to her letter, the girl had to go to Song Yan. Morning came and the time for the appointed meeting was approaching. Jiang Xinyue came to the hotel and saw the right room. She walked in and immediately shouted to Song Yan that she had come, but standing near the window was not a shameless man. However, the girl was looking at her feet, so she didn't notice it. She was ready for anything, but first she wanted to see the money. Uncle Wang turned away from the window and greeted the lady of the Great Lin kindly. The girl saw Wang Zheng and concluded that his family was conspiring with the Song family to destroy their company. The man approached the blonde and explained that it was a misunderstanding. He said that he simply did not have time to respond to the request for cooperation and handed over the check. Xinyue was at a loss, but Uncle Wang said that Mr. Lin would take care of the scoundrel. The girl was not in any danger, and she wondered whether Mr. Lin asked him to help her. Wang Zheng admitted that this was the case, but assured that this was not a problem for him and he would solve everything that was bothering their company. Jiang Xinyue was overjoyed. She was sincerely grateful to the person who saved her in this situation. Uncle Wang left the room, leaving the girl inside, and he instantly became serious. He met with the greats and reported that his wife's problem had been resolved. Now Lin Feng was going to punish the offender. The god of war was going to teach someone who offends his wife a lesson. In another room, Lu Jia was sitting, who was angry because the scoundrel still had not come to him. The guy was very angry when he had to wait, but he admitted that Jiang Xinyue was a tough nut to crack. Mr. Lu's phone rang and his partner Song Yan's name appeared on the screen. Lu Jia picked up the phone and ordered the little crap to be tied up. He knew that Mr. Ben could kidnap anyone. Finally, there was a knock on the door of the room, and Mr. Lu was glad that Xinyue had come. The guy threw the phone away and ran to the door to quickly let the blonde inside, even though she kept him waiting. However, in the doorway he saw a completely different girl than he expected to see. Shao Qing was there and kicked the insolent person in the face with great force. Lu Jia flew back and hit the table, knocking the dishes off it. The girl broke the guy's lip with her blow. Mr. Lu did not understand why this strange girl pestered him and constantly appeared next to him. The great man's subordinate did not answer him. She turned back to the corridor and called out to Lin Feng. Lu Jia looked at the newcomer and was surprised because the guy seemed very familiar to him. Xinyue's husband said that he served in the army for many years and became known as the Great of the Southern Territories. Lu Jia felt his body numb with fear of this man, and he wondered why the Great One was helping the blonde. Lin Feng explained to Lu Jia that whoever he was calling a scoundrel was his wife and pinned the guy to the floor. Mr. Lu did not believe that a disabled person could turn out to be the Great of the Southern Territories. There were blood spatters around the guy's mouth. The god of war emitted a powerful aura and said that he didn't care whether the guy believed him. The man leaned towards Lu Jia and grabbed him by the collar of his t-shirt, lifting the guy into the air. Lin Feng believed that the most important thing now was to make the guy pay for Xinyue's humiliation. Mr. Lu did not believe that the god of war would dare to do something to him because he was the only heir of the Lu family, but despite this he flew into the wall with great force. The guy was seriously wounded. Now he had no doubt about someone else's rank and begged to forgive him, promising to pay any money. Lin Feng looked at the heir of the Lu family in bewilderment and asked if he really looked like someone who needed money. Xiao Qing watched with a satisfied smile as her master made the guy feel the consequences of his actions. Lu Jia's arm was broken and the rest of his body was trembling. The man said it was just a warning. The god of war wanted the beaten guy to understand that next time he would not be pardoned, and he himself would want to die. Lin Feng was about to leave and, as always, advised not to talk about his identity. They were walking down the hotel corridor when Xiao Qing asked if the great was afraid of revenge, but Lin had no intention of being wary of civilians. The great of the southern territories promised his subordinates that if the heads of the province wanted to strike, they would die. The girl's phone rang, and she took a break from the conversation to find out why they were bothering her. Xiao Qing was greatly frightened when Dr. Chenin reported that the little princess had been kidnapped and her whereabouts were unknown. Lin Feng was also thrown off balance by this news, and they rushed to the hospital, while protecting Xinyue from this news. They were in the ward in record time. Dr. Chen stood there and the god of war wanted to know when his daughter disappeared. The man was excited and said that he brought her breakfast and went to get ready for physical therapy, but when he returned, the princess was no longer there. The great of the southern territories hated himself for failing to prevent the kidnapping of his daughter. Anger filled his body, and in order to free himself from emotions, Lin Feng destroyed the floor in the ward with one blow. Chenin fell to his knees and admitted that it was all his fault and he should have taken better care of the little princess. But the god of war said that he did not blame him for the kidnapping, since he was a doctor and was fulfilling his duties. These words made Chenin at a loss. The man ordered Xiao Qing to immediately go to the control post and find the kidnapper. The guard was sitting in a small room and was engrossed in the game. He was sure that he had to win. Just at this moment, Xiao Qing appeared behind him, distracting the guard from the game. The girl reported the patient missing and asked to give her the camera footage. However, the man demanded more detailed information about the missing person. Lin's subordinate clarified that the patient is a child, and she disappeared about an hour ago and passed away as the Yusen family. The guard turned to Xiao Qing irritably and said that only an hour had passed and they needed to search the hospital first. The man continued to play and was not going to start searching until a day had passed and the police should come to him for the records. The beam of energy knocked the phone out of the guard's hands, greatly frightening the adult man. Lin Feng had no intention of wasting his time, so he was going to do whatever it took to obtain the recording. The security guard got angry and yelled at the uninvited guests. He could not provide them with records, and besides, the place was prohibited for outsiders to enter. The god of war released his frightening aura, showing the man that he had better not anger Lin Feng. Xiao Qing saw that the Great One had lost his temper and was afraid that the guard would be killed without further ado. The girl hastened to stop her master and decided to present a coupon stating that they were members of the Imperial family. The guard was speechless when he saw the purple gold, which represented the Imperial family and was a symbol of supreme power. Xiao Qing strongly recommended that they hurry up and provide them with the recording and saw that Lin Feng began to calm down. The man headed to the computer and quickly began searching for records from the past hour or so. They finally found a moment where they could clearly see Lin Yusen sleeping in his room. The god of war looked attentively at the recording and asked to enlarge the bottom panel. The recording showed that a man in a white coat lifted the sleeping girl from the bed and carried her away in an unknown direction. The guard peered at the silhouette of the kidnapper and realized that he seemed somehow familiar to him. Lin Feng heard this and the man reported that this man looked like an intern from their hospital, whose name was Zhao Gang. Xiao Qing got to find where the intern was, but he was not on the other cameras. Then the guard remembered that Gon was not received very well and 2 days ago the guy came to him and asked about the work of the point. This turn of events complicated the situation significantly, and Lin Feng began to lose control of himself again. The great of the southern territories held himself together with all his might and gave Shao Qing only 5 minutes to search for Zhao Gang. The girl did not argue about the time frame and immediately disappeared from the office to carry out the order. The guard felt the oppressive atmosphere and began to worry that he had done something wrong. Lin Feng's gloomy mood could be felt from a great distance, so the guard chose not to interfere. The god of war sat down on the man's chair and he tried to understand whether members of the imperial family should be so terrifying. Shao Qing was able to complete the task, and within a few minutes, in turn Zhao Gang was brought into the office. She threw him at Mr. Lin's feet and reported that her people found him sneaking around the hospital and immediately grabbed him. The intern snapped because he thought the doctor could walk in the hospital and threatened to call the police. Lin Feng's foot ended up on someone else's shoulder, and without preamble he demanded to know where the guy took the child. Zhao Gang wanted to shake off someone else's foot and stubbornly pretended that he did not understand what kind of child he was talking about. The great southerner did not have time to play other people's games and the man was angry that they were trying to deceive him. Therefore, his foot began to press on the kidnapper's shoulder with such force that the floor began to crack under his hands. Lin Feng pressed until Zhao Gang's right hand was completely pressed into the floor. Shao Qing and the guard watched the interrogation. The man was very nervous from the cruelty with which the Great One acted. However, the kidnapper could not stand the torture and said that he was hired, and his boss would not forgive Gon's death. The god of war was glad to hear such a statement, because now he could give himself a reason to stop trying to control himself. Lin Feng stood up from his seat and knocked the intern back several meters with one punch. And although at first glance the blow did not look strong, after it Zhao Gang coughed up blood. The Great One did not allow the guy to catch his breath and stepped on his chest. The man admitted that no one had threatened him like this for a long time. The man made a little effort and pressed the kidnapper to the floor with the help of his leg. Zhao Gang tried to take advantage of the moment and pretend that he had lost consciousness. But Shao Qing immediately saw through him and asked Mr. Lin to bring the guy to his senses and make him talk. Lin Feng said that he was not going to waste time on such things, and since Gon refused to talk, then they would just finish him off. The young doctor realized that he only had one chance to survive, so he promised to tell them everything. The great of the southern territories showed the guy all his strength and ordered him to immediately tell him where he had taken Yusen. Zhao Gang could hardly speak, but said that he put the girl in Mr. Song's car and he took her to his home. Lin Feng was not very surprised when he heard this name, but now he was sure that the heir of the Song family would die. It turned out that the guy put Gon in the hospital and threatened him in order to get help in the kidnapping. The intern hoped that he would be released, but Lin Feng believed that the guy had made a terrible mistake and even death was not enough to atone for it. The god of war asked Shao Qing to find someone to deal with the kidnapper's body and then follow him to Song's house. It was a beautiful sunny day outside, and the Song family estate was calm, despite the kidnapped child. Lin Yuxian was tied to a chair. The girl screamed for the bad uncle to let her go, and was sure that the police would detain the man. However, Song Yen laughed at this because without proof, no one would dare to break into his influential family's house. Mr. Song was a disgusting person and he blamed the ungrateful Jiang Xinyue for his actions. The man believed that he had to repay the girl for ruining his health. Yen pulled the baby's cheeks and enjoyed her helplessness. Lin Yusen believed that the man in front of her was a very bad person, and her mother had never done anything wrong. The little princess continued to resist because she was sure that daddy would soon appear and save her. Song Yen flicked the girl on the forehead because she dared to mention Lin Feng in front of him. This garbage was the cause of his suffering. From the unpleasant sensations and her own helplessness, the baby began to cry loudly. Suddenly there was a sound of breaking glass and the little princess's father appeared behind the kidnapper. Song Yen was immediately hit in the face. Mr. Song's glasses broke and he fell to the floor. The girl saw her father, and the tears immediately stopped flowing from her eyes. Yusen was happy to see her hero. Lin Feng walked up to Xian and began to untie her from the chair, promising the little girl that everything would be fine now. The girl told her dad that she was waiting for him, and the man began to carefully examine his daughter, looking for injuries. It turned out that the god of war was a little late and the bad uncle managed to hit the princess in the forehead, but as soon as the father arrived, the pain went away. Lin Feng picked up Yusen and asked if she was ready to teach the bad guys a lesson. Xian was ready and asked her dad to avenge her mom. Song Yen trembled when the girl told her father that she did not remember which hand her uncle hit her with, but it was very painful. The heir of the Song family decided to take advantage of the moment and try to run outside. He wondered how the Great One found him so quickly. The god of war listened carefully to the story of his princess and drew his own conclusions from it. Yen was already near the exit and believed that he would be saved as soon as he ran out into the street, because in front of everyone they would not touch him. But the guy did not take into account the fact that Lin Feng was considered the god of war, and his speed amazed the minds of ordinary people. This is why the escape of the heir of the Song family failed, and now he will have to accept punishment. Lin Feng looked at the frightened kidnapper and said that he did not remember allowing him to leave. With every second, Song Yen realized the severity of his offense and was overcome by animal horror. The guy decided to try to fight back and aimed at the hand with which the great of the southern territories was holding his daughter. The heir of the Song family ran as fast as he could and called for help, hoping that his parents would save him. Naturally, he couldn't run far because Lin Feng held the guy tightly by the hand. With one deft movement, the Great One twisted someone else's arm, causing Song Yen to scream in pain. The little princess covered her ears and complained to Dad that this man was too noisy. Dad promised Yusen that now the bad uncle would be silent, and a blue flame appeared in his left hand. This fire was directed at the heir of the Song family and he screamed even louder, causing the little girl to close her eyes. Yan's eyes dimmed and instead of screams, barely audible wheezes escaped from his mouth as he fell to the ground. Lin Feng heard the cry of the head of the family. The man burst into the room and begged to spare his son. Mr. Song was confused. He looked in shock at the condition of his child and realized that everything was very bad. Song Yen slumped against the wall, his chest was burned, his entire body was covered in bruises, and his eyes were rolled back. His father fell to his knees before the god of war and begged him to have mercy and forgive Yan's stupid mistake. Lin Feng was completely unaffected by other people's words, as someone else's son did not feel sorry for his princess until he appeared. The head of the Song family knew that they were at a disadvantage when something rushed past him. The next moment, Xiaoqing appeared in the room. She reported to the Great One that everything was allowed in the hospital. The baby was scared by such a sudden appearance, but Dad explained that this auntie was his friend and there was no need to be afraid of her. Lin Feng was going to give the girl his daughter and end up with the bad uncles alone. Yan's father could not cope with his fear. Lin Yusen held Xiaoqing's shoulders and wished her dad to successfully take revenge for their family. When the baby left the room, the great southern territory could show all its power, and he reminded the Song family that he had shown kindness once before. The head of the family tried to take the blame on himself and hoped to convince Lin Feng to inflict any injuries on Yen, but save his life. The god of war reminded the man that he had no right to impose conditions and loomed over Song Yen, who was trying to crawl back. But this time, the Song family's pleas were useless, and the great of the southern territories ended the guy with one blow. The head of the Song family could not do anything and had to watch his own son die. It was all over when Lin Feng said that it was too late to beg for mercy and he didn't give second chances to anyone. The Great One took advantage of his speed and approached Yan's father, who was still in a state of shock. Then the guy took the man's head and said that his family had better leave the city within one day, because if they decide not to do this, then the head of the Song family will be next. The head of the Song family lay on the floor next to his son's body and sighed heavily. He understood that if he did not want to go to the next world, he had to agree with Mr. Lin and leave the city. After all these events, it's time to see what's happening in the Lu family estate. There was not a single intact spot left on Lu Jie's body, and he was thinking about the connection between Xinyue and Great Lin. The father burst into the guy's room screaming. The man was furious and wanted to find out who dared to beat his son. Father promised to tear the culprit into pieces and Lu Jie already wanted to complain to Dad, as always. But he suddenly remembered that if he dared to reveal Lin Feng's identity, the man would destroy the entire Lu clan. Therefore, for the sake of the well-being of the family, the guy had to shut up. He became apathetic and admitted that he could not tell. Now the head of the Lu family was also angry with his son and gave him a strong slap in the face so that the guy would remember that they owned the city. Lu Jie wondered if the Zhou family had more power than the great, and he decided to keep Lin Feng's identity a secret for now. The father considered his son a weakling, but his story was unnecessary, since the man had already hired an investigator. This man just appeared next to them and reported that he had managed to find out the connection between the culprit and the Jiang family. This was just a clue, but the man was ready to destroy the entire Jiang family in one fell swoop, without going into details. The head of the Liu family noticed that the investigator was not leaving and assumed that he had some more news. He turned out to be right as the old man spoke about Song Yan's murder, and added that the killer was the same person who beat Mr. Liu. Horror ran through Liu Jie's body like a pulsive current, and he was seriously worried that he would be the next to die. The guy's father considered the Song family to be failures for not being able to deal with someone like the Jiang family. The man was completely consumed by the desire for revenge, and figured out how to deal with the Jiang family at the Binhai celebration. Evening came and it was time for Jiang Xinyue to pick up her daughter from the hospital. The girl came into the room and brought a cake for discharge. The woman asked how Xian was feeling, but to her horror, Lin Yusen was not in the ward. Madame Jiang called out to her daughter in desperation. There was no answer, and Xinyue was terrified at the idea that something had happened to Yusen. The cake fell from her weakened hands, but the next second the girl heard her daughter's voice. Jiang Xinyue forgot about everything and rushed to the girl, asking her about her well-being. Lin Yusen felt guilty towards her mother, so she lied that her father was taking her to play. Mrs. Jiang asked the little girl not to play with strangers and admitted that Xian scared her a lot. Jiang Xinyue was tense when he said that Lin Feng was taking the girl to play, but he was at home all this time. Shao Qing watched with emotion as the little girl discovered the spoiled cake and noticed that Lin's wife valued the girl's life above her own. Lin Feng stood nearby and admitted in a distressed voice that the girl was indeed a good mother, but the great southerner was greatly distressed by the fact that he owed her too much. Mr. Lin remembered that it was time for them to go, since no one from the Lin Imperial family was left to send people to the celebration, and they needed to prepare. In his last battle, the man was ready to fight until his last breath for the peace of his family. The guy was sitting in his pool and calmly drinking wine. He looked at the spear of thunder and thought about something of his own. The man turned to his subordinate and asked if it was true that the great Lin had awakened. The servant confirmed that such rumors were circulating, and information also appeared that one of the families had already been expelled by him. The Dragon Lord believed that this was just a show to show his importance, but in fact his family had already lost its power. The subordinate was convinced that Lin Feng was a threat to the emperor and suggested getting rid of him. His Excellency became angry with the servant and, without leaving the pool, directed his energy towards him. The guy was thrown back, and the Dragon Lord said that he did not remember giving such an order. The servant crashed into a column, but insisted that it was dangerous for His Majesty to leave the God of War alive. The Dragon Lord believed that Lin Feng could be useful since he had a good reputation among the people. However, His Majesty considered that the Great One should be shown in his place, and he told the servant about this. The subordinate listened to the words of the Dragon Lord and promised him to settle everything. The man walked to the center of the pool and extended a hand that did not look like a human to the spear. The thunder spear refused to obey and red lightning began to appear along its entire length. His Majesty was forced to let go of the god's spear because it rejected him. The lightning of the spear severely wounded the man's hand, and he became gloomy. The Dragon Lord came up with an ingenious solution to the problem. His Majesty decided that since Lin Feng had not died, then the Emperor would give him a reception. Eyes appeared on the man's unusual hand and concentrated power began to appear in his palm. The Emperor decided that since he could not use the artifact, he would simply destroy it so that Lin Feng would not get it. Lightning from the power of the Dragon Lord and the lightning from the spear of the Thunder God itself illuminated everything around, accompanied by the man's mad laughter. In Zhang's country house, all family members lived a normal life and spent the evening calmly. Suddenly, Lin Fan felt something strange and was surprised to realize that the Thunder God's spear had been destroyed. Shao Qing noticed the sudden and drastic change in the great man's face and asked what happened. Mr. Lin asked where his spear was, and after learning that it was in the Imperial family's possession, he said that it had been destroyed a couple of minutes ago. The girl noticed that such an artifact is very difficult to destroy, and the Great One realized that this was a warning. In addition, he knew who could destroy the spear and was not going to miss the celebration because of this and continue to endure the humiliation of his family. Lin Feng sat in the wheelchair and promised Xiaoqing that he would piece together what was taken from him. A man dressed all in black appeared near the Jiang family's country house. He quickly approached the windows. And when he noticed Lin Feng's bedroom, he took aim and threw a blade at the Great Southern Territories. The window next to Xiaoqing broke and something flew past her at great speed. The girl realized that a hired killer had visited them. Mr. Lin managed to lower his head and caught the blade of the golden blade, remaining unharmed. The subordinate shouted to the Great One that she was immediately going in pursuit of the assassin, and Lin Feng himself frowned and carefully examined the dragon dagger in his hands. Li Qiuying and Xinya were sitting in the living room when the blondes heard some strange noises and tried to figure out where they came from. Suddenly the lights in the room went out, and the girls sat in complete darkness and looked around in fear. Lin Feng was extremely wary when he realized that an outsider had broken into the house. Jiang Xinya screamed when she could see the silhouette of a guy in the darkness right in front of her. The girl tried to find out from the stranger who he was and how he got into her house, but the criminal remained silent. This man was wearing a mask and looked carefully at the blondes. He said they would pay with their lives for covering for the wrong person. A small purple ball began to form in the criminal's hand and he prepared to attack the girls. Li Queenie did not want to die for no apparent reason and offered to give the man all the money they had. The guy in the mask invited the woman to take her money to the grave and was going to hit them from above. Xinya hugged her mother, who was also trembling with fear, and they wailed that they did not want to die. Several agonizing seconds passed before the girls realized they could still breathe. They timidly looked in front of them and saw a man holding the hand of the criminal. Lin Feng condemned the guy's actions and slightly twisted the other person's arm. The Great One did not understand why attack defenseless girls. Mr. Lin was going to protect the Jiang family even though he didn't like them very much. Blue lightning appeared in his hand. The criminal still had one free hand, and he concentrated his power into his fist. The men attacked each other at the same time and each was able to parry the other's blow. The mercenary laughed and prepared to strike again. The man was amused by the fact that Lin Feng was weak. They continued to fight and soon a knife appeared in the hand of the guy with the mask. The mercenary heard that the door to the house was about to open and asked Lin Feng if this was his family. The man reacted instantly, so when Jiang Xinyue and Yusen entered the house in the living room, they were no longer there. Only the terrified girls remained in the room, and Xinya excitedly asked if her sister had returned. Senior, Jiang was surprised that they were sitting in the dark and went to the switch to turn on the light. When the room was illuminated, Mrs. Jiang saw the terrible consequences of the battle and asked in horror what had happened. While their mother was recovering, Xinya said that they were attacked by a masked man, but someone managed to save them. Younger Jiang remembered that their savior looked like Mr. Lin, who was at her birthday party. The little princess began to run inside the house and shout that her father saved her family. Grandma felt disgusted as she watched the little thing run to the trash as soon as it returned. Lin Feng dealt with the criminal and now returned to looking at the golden dagger. Xiaoqing appeared at the window and regretfully reported that she had failed in the task and the mercenary left. The Great One said that this is not important now, and he asked to look at the dagger in his hands. And then the subordinate recognized the dragon dagger with which the Dragon Lord awarded his servants. In addition, the Binhai celebration was moved to tomorrow evening, which confirmed their guesses. The Great One asked Xiaoqing to go to Wangzheng and tell him that his family would be in charge of Xinyue's safety tomorrow. Based on Shen Yan's actions, it could be understood that he wanted Lin Feng to disappear. The door to the bedroom opened with a roar and a happy daughter ran into the man, tearing him out of his heavy thoughts. The little girl was sure that it was her dad who saved her aunt and grandmother, so her father praised her for her intelligence. Lin Feng took the girl in his arms and asked how she would react if her dad turned out to be not exactly a hero. The little princess smiled at her father and admitted that as long as he protects her and her mother, he will always be a hero. Jiang Xinyue caught up with her daughter and entered the bedroom, and then asked Xian not to bother her dad. The girl took the baby in her arms, and they agreed that they would allow dad to rest a little more. Xinyue couldn't wait for Lin Feng to awaken. The lady had not yet left the room when someone called her. Lin's wife heard Mr. Wang's voice and asked what happened to him. The man said that the celebration was postponed, and someone would pick her up tomorrow. Xinyue was surprised and admitted that she no longer had an invitation. Wang Zheng assured that the invitation is just a piece of cardboard and Madame is a respected guest. The girl was happy about this news and said that she was very glad to hear it, and also apologized for the inconvenience. Jiang Xinyue patted the baby's head and asked her to look after daddy tomorrow night. Lin Yusen was only glad to stay with her father and admitted that she was not afraid of anything next to him. The evening of the Binhai celebration arrived. The huge territory was decorated simply luxuriously. Li Qian didn't understand why her daughter was so upset when she managed to attend such an event. It turned out that Xinyue was worried about her family, especially after their home was attacked. The woman rudely said that her two scum were of no use to anyone, and now she should concentrate and find a man to marry. The girls turned their heads, and Xinya saw Grandpa and Jiang Yuyan standing next to them. The younger Jiang held on to her mother and admitted that she was outraged by her cousin's behavior. Jiang Yuyan also noticed her relatives and asked how they got here without an invitation. Xinya flared up and shouted that they were guests of honor and Mr. Wang had personally brought them to the celebration. The guy next to Yuyan was surprised by the rest of her family while the girl tried to put herself in a better light. She took out the invitation and, reveling in her superiority, began to send Jiang Xinyue home. Junior sister Jiang pointed at Yuyan and reminded her that this invitation belonged to her sister, so she had to return it. Then the girl said that Xinyue does not belong to the Jiang family, and only a worthy representative receives an invitation. The guy next to him finally noticed the invitation and almost choked when he saw that it was purple and gold. These colors were the symbol of the Imperial family, and this invitation confirmed the rumors that the Jiang family was close to the Wang family and Great Lin. Another man appeared next to Jiang Yuyan. He took the invitation and taunted the girl, calling it a fake. The girl tried to take it back, but she failed, and the man noticed that her joy did not last long. Yuyan was angry that strangers were calling the genuine invitation a fake. Mr. Lu ordered the girl to watch her tongue and introduced her to the respected gentleman of their family, Zhou. Jiang Yuyan immediately felt anxious as she realized what an influential person was now standing next to her. A member of the Zhou family was trying to figure out why there were scum like the Jiang family at such a luxurious celebration. After these words, the anxiety evaporated, and irritation and anger returned to its place, but grandfather stopped Yuyan. The old man bowed to respected Mr. Zhou and apologized to him for his rudeness, and also said that the family was at their disposal. The man smiled evilly when he heard these words from the head of the Jiang family. Mr. Zhou threw out the invitation and blamed the Jiang family members for beating Mr. Lu. He shouted that he had wanted to feel sorry for them before, but was now considering taking action regarding the situation with Lu. Jiang Yuyan didn't understand what he was talking about and explained that they didn't do anything to Mr. Lu. The girl glanced quickly towards Xinyue and became gloomy when she realized that she had something to do with this. Yuyan grabbed her sister's hand and began to accuse her of thus taking revenge on Lu Jia for his advances. Jiang admitted that it couldn't have been her because she didn't even know about the beating. Lu Jia's father did not believe the girl and ordered her not to pretend and tell everything honestly, because otherwise, the Jiang family will be forced to immediately leave the city tomorrow. Their quarrel was interrupted by the appearance of Wang Zheng. Behind him was the little princess who stood next to the Great One and Shaoqing. Mr. Wang was not going to tolerate those who started family fights in such a place. The baby saw her mother and called her. Xinyue was surprised to see Xian, but she was happy to see her daughter there. The girl held her dad's hand and happily waved to Xingqiu. Yusen explained that dad asked for a surprise for mom. Mr. Zhou looked at the new people with disdain and asked Lu Wang who they were. The head of the Lu family said that the disabled person in the wheelchair is Jiang Xinyue's husband, Lin Feng, and the girl is their daughter. The man hugged Mr. Lu and started laughing until he cried. Mr. Zhou did not understand the meaning of such scum. After all, they can neither speak nor move. The man's laughter was interrupted by Lin Feng asking what he couldn't do yet. Jiang Xinyue looked at her husband and couldn't believe that Lin Feng was actually awake. The baby was next to her mother, and now she could show her evidence that she was telling the truth. Mr. Zhou believed that awakening Lin Feng was pointless since he could only sit in the wheelchair. The great of the southern territories only snorted at such a statement and stood up, releasing an ominous aura. After that, he asked what next, but Mr. Zhou was greatly amazed by what he saw. But the confusion did not last long and a member of the Zhou family was going to break the guy's legs and take revenge for the Lu family.